Richard Casper. Dude, thank you so much, man. You are you have been immensely helpful for me for this trip.
I appreciate it.
Like you literally helped me find people to, like, every single person that we were able to interview here was all because you linked them up with me.
Yeah, I mean, I just know so many interesting people, and I mean,
You do.
You're such a good storyteller and a listener, and there's always so many people in the veteran space and non-veteran space who support veterans that I was like, why don't you go on podcasts more? Why don't you speak more? And they're like, I never get an opportunity. So I saw this as a win-win. You get really interesting, awesome, authentic people, and they get to tell their stories.
Dude, yeah, that was the one thing I was just saying before we started, was like, dude, everybody that you recommended were all like awesome people, just like salt of the earth, super nice, genuinely, like just genuine good people, you know?
Yeah.
And they all have unbelievable stories. Like they've just done so many different wild things and crazy experiences. I mean, it was pretty impressive for me. And the fact that you're able to you're like, oh yeah, I had 5 people figured out before I even like the first hour of being at your golf tournament you guys were holding. I was like, holy hell, that was quick. Like, I didn't expect that, man. But for those of you that don't know, I met Richard here through his cousin Cliff, because Cliff and I both went through the same program in college for the Marine Corps. And so we were in college together, and Cliff, I randomly reached out to me one day, like, hey man, my cousin runs a nonprofit up in Nashville. I'd love to link you guys up. I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds good. Like, I know you personally. We've had lots of conversations, and like, I've already told you this a million times, but Cliff and Rich are like so similar in personality. It's pretty uncanny, actually. It's like I feel like I'm talking to Cliff sometimes when I'm talking to you. But
well, I love that you got to spend so much time with them too, because even me, I joined the Marine Corps in 2003, and I didn't see him again forever. And then 7 years later, he went to the Marine Corps, and I got to go to his graduation.
Yeah.
So it's always really cool meeting people who've known him for a long enough time. Was it 2 years that you're in school with him?
Yeah.
Enough time to know his true personality, because he's such a quiet person. Because if people saw us just interacting in a room, they'd be like, they're super different. Yeah. But when you get us together and when he feels comfortable, it's the same. Yeah. Same sense of humor, same everything.
Yeah, exactly. Which I love. It's just like, I don't know. I know him very well. So when I first met you, like, I felt like I already kind of knew you. You know what I mean? Just because, like, just your personality, which is great. Plus, you're really outgoing, gregarious, open, kind dude. Anyway, genuine guy. Even just like briefly seeing like you interacting with all the folks at the golf tournament, the CreatiVets golf tournament. I could tell, like, you're the person that you portray yourself as everywhere is the person that you are genuinely, like, everywhere.
No, I appreciate that.
There's no, like, you're not like putting on a show or anything like that, which that's,
I
really
love
like
people.
that.
And I mean, I try to remember, even though I have a brain injury, I try to remember every connection point, even if it's like 10 years later. If I can remember something being like, oh, like this is a side note that we can get into if you want to, but we did a project with George Strait. And then I was like, wait, how did I get to that George Strait project? And I was like, oh, it was Hannah Wilson over at Universal Music. I was like, but why did I connect with her? I was like, oh, I met her at Parallel Music when I first got to town through Lance Carpenter and some other friends. But I was like, but why was I reaching out to her anyways? I was like, oh, my buddy Tommy Carlos sent me a tip sheet, and I saw Hannah was on like the A&R person, and that's why I reached out to her. So I called Tommy to thank him. Like, it took me forever, but I just felt like I should thank him because he connected me to this big project we just had. So I always try to.
So many dots you got to connect.
Bro. I know, but I feel like I should do it because I feel so appreciative that people are like bending over backwards to help me out, and then I try not to lose sight of that because that's what keeps me humble and like knowing that it's not just me doing all this.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. It takes a village.
Yeah,
to build, especially build a nonprofit, because there's a million nonprofits out there.
Yeah.
And then there's like a million veteran nonprofits within the nonprofit genre.
So there's around 43,000 veteran service organizations by themselves,
which is a lot.
Just to fight through those, but like I think 80% of those don't even go over revenue over like 100,000. Yeah. So they're very community based, and nobody ever will know they exist. And so and it's really hard to go from that 80% threshold up until like where the big dogs play, and that's where we're getting into now. Is like we get more media attention probably than the $80 million nonprofits when we're like, we just broke 2 million barely, scraping by, like compared to them.
Yeah.
But we grow year over year, but the media attention that we get is absolutely insane because I think it's not just the impact we're having, because a lot of nonprofits have impact. It's the thoughtfulness in the way that we build our programs and then incorporate these artists and other people, because I say this all the time. Out of all the veterans who are taking their own lives, like there's a few different statistics on it. There's the VA DOD statistics that is roughly like 19.7 veterans take their lives and active duty take their lives every single day. And there's something called American Warrior Partnership, which dove in deeper. Like Corner Report, they go and interview people, because the VA doesn't, I don't think, counts anybody that didn't leave a note behind too, which, as you know, you probably have people the same way who they'd feel. We had a lady who legitimately told us she was going to have a rock climbing accident, so her kids didn't know she killed herself before she went to our program. She like opened up to us. Jesus. So you obviously know those numbers are probably low. American Warrior Partnership says it's more likely to be 24 to 44 a day, which is insane. But from that VA study, they said 80% of the veterans who take their lives don't seek help or hadn't in the last 2 years. So you can have a nonprofit that's 100% successful and you're still not helping 80% of the people that need it. Yeah. So when we build our programs, we build that in mind. I'm like, okay, if I have a songwriting program in Bloomington, Illinois, will that person who won't show up to the VA come to it? Probably not. If I have that program in Nashville with Vince Gill, will they show up? 100% of the time. Gill, yeah. And so that's why I've been shooting for the stars, not just because I want to be up there with them, but I know that if I can outweigh a veteran's anxiety and depression with excitement, I can get them to do anything. And that anything is teach them that art and music will save their life.
I think that's awesome, man. But that's like, at the end of the day, that's what you've built, is this organization ultimately that is aimed at saving people's lives. And it helps them transition from, active duty life to being in the civilian sector and pursuing a path in the arts, which I've never heard of any other VSO doing something like that before. Yeah. Yours is the first that I've ever heard of that. Being a thing.
And there's a lot of VSOs out there that do arts.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's the wrong way, but they're doing arts in a way that is for the veteran who wants to do it. So if you serve with any other Marines who love drawing, they might get out and be like, I want to go to a nonprofit that just will enhance my drawing capabilities.
Yeah.
So there are nonprofits that are out there, like ASAP in Washington, D.C. They're even in Nashville for songwriting, Operation Song, Songwriting Soldiers. There's all these different nonprofits that focus on it. It's not, I don't feel like their main thing is mental health. I think their main thing is like, let's get most veterans to do arts because they want to do art. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Every veteran deserves a song or to do art. Ours is so strategic, going after the ones who don't want to. So if you wrote songs in the Marine Corps and you came to our CreatiVets, you said, hey, I heard you fly veterans to Nashville and active duty in Nashville to write backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. I want to do that. I'm like, oh, do you song right now? You say, yeah. I'm like, oh, then you're not coming to that program. You have to go to my art program. You have to go to a program that you don't do already. Because why am I going to waste donor dollars teaching you the same skill set that's not saving your life, that's putting you down a bad hole? I want to teach you something completely new because that will save your life. And so I don't want to do the same thing they've been doing. And that's where we're way different. And people get mad at us sometimes. I have veterans pursuing music who get really mad at me because I'm like, no, if I could teach you art, fine art, ceramic, sculpture in a different way to make you challenge yourself and kind of transition your warrior brain to your artist brain so you can survive the rest of your life, I'm going to do that through art because you already know songwriting. You knew songwriting before you're injured and after, and it's not helping you. So why would I invest in you doing more songwriting and think that's going to help you? It's not. And that's where we kind of are apart from every other nonprofit.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig more into a lot of the finer details of what CreatiVets does as well, and we'll get there. But I want to kind of like give people a little bit more backstory on you and your story, because I think that'll help paint the picture of like how you actually arrived at a place where you decided this is something you wanted to pursue, because that was kind of along your journey to like help yourself and like fix the things that you were going through. You like inadvertently founded this organization that not only helped heal you, but has helped heal lots of other people and provide opportunities to a lot of other people. But in order to understand how that came to fruition, they need to kind of understand your backstory. So where you're from, is it Chicago, Illinois, or just Illinois?
Washburn, Illinois. It's 1,100 people, small farming village. It's so small, it's called a village.
So small, it's called a village.
Legitimately, I got a key to the city, but it technically was a key to the village.
Okay.
I had 22 kids in my graduating class, 7
Wow.
females, so it was hard to survive in high school.
Oh man.
But you know what? I did get prom king and class clown. So
Did you really?
Yeah, it wasn't hard, but
It
wasn't a lot of competition. But it's legitimately a 1 square mile by 1 square mile farming town.
That's a limited. Imagine like you're 22 people graduating.
Yeah.
How did anybody like find a girlfriend or boyfriend?
That's what I'm saying. And they'd cycle them too.
Drought,
like,
dude.
They would be like, yeah, it's
They would
crazy.
cycle them around.
Well, my sister was in town. You met her briefly, but she has 12 in her class. Same Washburn. So like,
Wow.
It fluctuates. The highest class I think they ever had is like 40, and then the lowest is probably 12 to 8. Because it's just a very small farming town where art, music were not a thing.
Yeah.
That's the importance of my story, is that I didn't want to do art. I didn't want to do music. And I think, again, that's what sets the nonprofit apart.
Yeah.
But man, I used to doodle a lot because I was like, I got 22nd in my class, which sounds good until you know the actual number.
22nd in my class. Is that good or is it bad? I don't know.
I know. Usually I don't tell them how big my class was. So I just say 22nd in my class. Or, oh, that must be good.
Oh, that's pretty good. Out of what, 600, right? No, out of 22.
But part of that was intentional because I knew I was joining the Marine Corps. Well, I didn't know at first. I knew I was joining the military.
Yeah.
My dad's one of 11. Army, Navy, Air Force, nobody Marine Corps, but like all of his brothers served in some form of fashion. My 3 older siblings never even made it out of high school. They went to drugs, alcohol, never graduated. I was the youngest of 4.
Oh, wow.
And so I grew up around that. And I was just like, so 2 main reasons I was going to the military. One, because it was a family history of it. And I just had this sense of I want to serve the way that my dad did. And I just read all about it. And then, but my siblings weren't being successful. And honestly, even my dad and everyone else weren't successful. A lot of drunks, alcoholics, like nobody, most of them, we grew up in food stamps. Most of them never succeeded. Out of all my siblings, like uncles and aunts, nobody succeeded.
Yeah.
So at very young age, probably 7 or 8, I said, you know what? They all drink or do drugs. I'm not going to drink ever. And to this day, I've never even tasted alcohol, which is probably the only Marine you'll ever meet that's never even tasted it.
Really?
Yeah, never tasted beer. I don't know what beer tastes like.
Wow.
But it was intentional because I knew I had to get out of that town.
So was that more of like an intuitive thing where you're like, I don't want to be like those people that I saw, obviously their lives were falling apart?
Yeah, and that's where the one superpower I think I had was to be able to understand that so young. I think that's how I was able to build the programs the way I do. When I get in those later, you'll probably be like, well, how'd you come up with that? I think it's because I'm always taking in this information around me and I'm putting it out in different ways, like thinking about it differently. And when I saw that, I was just like, okay, they're all not successful. They all have these 2 things in common. Maybe if I strip away these 2 things, I'll be successful.
Yeah.
And so it started like that. So growing up in high school with a bunch of people trying to get me to drink, and then obviously when I joined the Marine Corps, people tried to make me drink too.
Oh, sure.
It was bad.
I bet.
But in 2000, so I graduated high school in 2003, but I still didn't know. It was probably 2001 when I decided I was going Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Like that's when I was kind of up in the air of going through high school, just being like, I had this Army recruiter, this Marine Corps recruiter, and I was like, I want to probably be a Marine because I just, the few, the proud, all that. And then 9/11 happened, and that's when I just said, I'm going to be a Marine. I'm just going to go in, infantry, Marine, first person overseas. I was 17 at the time when I decided that, and I went to my mom, said, I'm going to go sign up to be a Marine. And she's like, no, you're not. We're not going to sign the papers for you. I said, well, they have this thing called was it DEP program, right?
Yeah, the delayed entry program.
Delayed entry program. And I was like, so if you sign now when I'm 17, I'll do a whole year with that training me before they go off to war so that I can be more prepared. Or you don't sign it, I'm just going to sign it when I'm 18 and go not knowing anything. And so they thought it'd be smarter to let me sign at 17 so that I would get training for it.
You swindled them, man.
Yeah. So they signed it. I was in the DEP program doing all the little, like, every once in a while, whatever weekends, running mock PFTs and stuff and learning more about the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated in high school in 2003, 2 weeks later, I was on a plane going to MCRD, San Diego. So I get there, and it's so funny in boot camp. You hear all these horror stories and everything. In the first week, I didn't know. The only thing I was never told was like how that whole first week in transition.
Oh, the worst.
Here's another
week.
story. I may be one of the only Marines you ever met who's never stood on the yellow footprints.
Really?
So our flight got so delayed that we got into LA or to San Diego at probably like 2 a.m. because we were supposed to be there earlier than that.
Yeah.
We get there at 2 a.m. and it's receiving day. And so you imagine the drill instructors and the people who've been there yelling at young Marines all day long. So like we have a little van pick us up, only 6 of us. We drive to the MCRD San Diego. We get off. Nobody comes in and yells at us on the van. They're like, "Hey, just get off the van. Go to the receiving." And so we go, and I remember walking by these yellow footprints, being like, "I think I'm supposed to stand here." Like in my head, I'm like,
"Yeah." Like, well, wait a second.
We walk right past them and into receiving, and everyone's like, they're too tired to be angry too. You could tell they're frustrated. They're like, "No, just go get your stuff over there. Go, like, just get it." It wasn't like I was like, this is gonna be not too bad.
That was a really bad false sense of security, probably though.
Yeah. See, but you also have that little week of receiving where you don't do a ton. You're trying to be placed into your platoon and find your drill instructors. Yeah. And again, that week was relatively easy, still kind of scary, but relatively easy.
Yeah.
And then when you get placed, man, it's like all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that someone told me, an older Marine in my small town, was like, hey, just don't be noticed. Like, that's the big thing, is fly under the radar. People are going to want you to be a squad leader. People are going to want you to be, they're going to promote, like, say, do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the best information I ever heard.
That's what I did. I tried to hide under the radar, but I ended up getting picked to do things later on. And I was like, I don't want to do this, but it ended up working out anyway. But So you tried to be under the radar while you were there?
I tried to, but within I can't remember truly, but about 1 week to 2 weeks in, when we're always getting haze and stuff, they come out with this sheet and they say, I have a list of special testers. Now, here's what's funny about that, because I remember in high school when I told you I knew I was going to the Marine Corps. So every time we got like a state standardized test that we're supposed to do or whatever, I would just C straight down the middle, like as fast as I could, because I didn't think I was going to college. None of my family went to college. I'm going to Marine Corps for life. I was like, who needs this? Who needs this? Who needs this?
You just say C's the whole way,
all the way down.
So they probably thought you were like on the spectrum.
When they came in and said I was a special tester, I legit was like, oh crap, I should have tried harder. I was like, there's probably all the special Marines. They give a helmet and crayons and say go there. That was legitimately my first thought when they said special testers. But they had like 15 to 20 names on there of other recruits. And then when we came out, every other platoon had 15 to 20 Marines just randomly selected. So when you go there, I'm not good at math, but it was probably between 100 and 200 Marines when we first started that first phase of special testing. We would go and we'd sit down with like a clinician, psychiatrist person, and you're kind of like being sent to these rooms. They're like, do you talk in your sleep? Does your family travel out of the country? All these weird questions are like, you just answer them. Yeah. And then you go right back to normal boot camp. Like nothing happened. A few weeks later go by, all of a sudden, hey, special testers, but there's less of us. Every single time there's less and less Marines. And then I was in the Marine Corps when they were transitioning. I'm not sure if they still do it. Was your boot camp 4 weeks MCRD, 4 weeks SOI, or 4 weeks Camp Pendleton, 4 weeks back MCRD, or was your 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks?
No, so I went to Parris Island. So ours was just 13 weeks on Parris Island straight.
Oh, okay. So when I was in MCRD, right before we got there, it was 6 weeks and then two weeks and then the other 2 weeks or whatever. And that was because when we did the Crucible, because we had to go all the way up. When we went up the mountains, it was a little bit harder. Like your guys' was tougher on like the mental because the fleas and all the other swamps. Ours was on the strength because we'd have so many people roll their ankles, hurt themselves because we're going up those generous mountains and rocks.
Reaper and stuff.
So they were actually having an issue with Marines getting their Eagle Globe and Anchor 2 weeks before graduating, and then all of a sudden they can't go to the fleet because they were injured. So they were still recovering from the Crucible.
Oh, wow.
So they decided with us to try out 4 weeks in MCRD, 4 weeks in Camp Pendleton where we did the Crucible, and then we'd have 4 weeks back to do the rest of it. So we got our Eagle Globe and Anchor like halfway through because of that, but I think they changed it back afterwards.
Yeah, they probably did.
But when I was doing that, I feel so bad for my dude who was with me. I don't remember who it was, but it's when they split us off to do fire holes, or what do you call it? Freaking when you're just digging foxholes. Like when you're digging, like 2-man foxholes, we're supposed to do a thing where you cut it out, 2-man foxhole, make the grenade slump, all the stuff where you're
in recruit training.
Yeah, it was when we went to San Diego. We had to do that in a training thing, and so because I remember when I was up there, I'm almost certain, unless the special testing, it's been so long ago.
Yeah.
No, the special testing didn't go through SOI, so it had to be then.
Okay.
Because I remember when I was up there, we were digging something, or we're digging the hole we just started, and they came up the hill. And they're like, hey, Rich or Casper, you have to go back for the testing. And I was like, I'm sorry. Because they said,
I'm sorry.
He had to dig out the entire thing.
Oh, man.
So I went back down the mountain. But this is by the time that there's only 20 of us left.
Yeah, okay.
And so They gathered 20 of us, and they said, you guys are now going to do interviews, mock interviews, like you do in the Marine Corps when you have to go up and you have to stand 6 inches from the desk and be like, Sergeant Major or whatever when they're briefing you. And I don't even think at boot camp they've taught us that to this point. They just said, hey, what's going to happen? You're going to walk through these doors. There's going to be either a gunny or a first sergeant on the other side of it. And again, we're like, we don't know what we're testing for. We don't know what this special tester is, not up to this point. But they decided in that moment to say, by the way, here's what you're tested for. You are going to guard the President of the United States, either at White House Communications or Camp David.
That was the whole reason why you were called special testers?
Yeah, because they were going through, the one test I tried on was the ASVAB. And so that's where, like, because you have to have a certain GT score. It has to be at least 110, I think, in like the technical something area.
Yeah, probably the GT score.
You had to have above physical fitness standards. So we're like 1% of the Marine Corps kind of makes it to that stage. And I was like, this is the exact opposite of what I thought. But also, this is a horrible time to tell me.
Also, this is a terrible, not good timing.
We're already afraid of any rank above us even. And that's the one unique thing about the Marine Corps that people probably don't know who don't. Army, they'll probably talk to like 8 ranks above them, just be like, yo, what up, dude?
Yeah.
I feel like, it's not that exaggeration, but
yeah.
In the Marine Corps, all the way up until you make E4, even then sometimes you're afraid to talk to the next level up. Like there's just this sense of like, I'm not going to talk, or I'm afraid of something's going to happen.
I'm going to jack something up when I'm talking to
So
them.
now, and you get punished for it. It's not like the bro thing. It's legitimately fraternizing. And they push that in the infantry. So I'm like, I'm a recruit, and I'm about to go talk to this gunnery sergeant or this first sergeant. And I'm glad I got the gunny. The first sergeant who came out, he actually ended up, which is crazy, he ended up being the first sergeant at Camp David later on.
No kidding.
But he even came out of the room. He's like, you guys are lucky you in that room, because I would have never let any of you in. And I was like, I believe him, honestly. But I went to this gunny, and I was so nervous. I was like, I want this now. This sounds cool.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting it. I think only like 14 of us got it or something like that. And I got selected for it. But the issue was, I went in the Marine Corps boot camp June 9th of 2003. So 3 months after that, I'm now going to SOI for 2 months. And right there, they just had us alphabetical, like most of the time.
June of 2003
is when I went into the Marine Corps.
Okay, so that was the same year we invaded Iraq.
That's what we knew. Yeah. That's where we knew it was going down.
Yeah.
So 3 months after that, I'm going to SOI, and I start training up, and we know we're like, everyone there is like, we're going to war. We're going to be the first boots, pretty much, like the first new guys in combat on line companies.
Yeah.
And so my last name's Casper, like the ghost, no relation.
The way you said it, like the ghost, no relation.
I get it a lot. You related?
I'm sure.
But I had like Cherry was right here, because it was all alphabetical in SOI. So I had Cherry here. He was the youngest guy in the Marine Corps at the time, because I remember when so now it's like around November time, it was Marine Corps ball. So they actually pulled Cherry from SOI to be the youngest guy in the Marine Corps to cut the cake alongside the oldest, whatever the ceremony.
And this is
still
SOI.
Still at the School of Infantry while we're training. So I remember Cherry had to get pulled to do that. He was the youngest guy in the Marine Corps at the time. And then I had Horn down here, Longoria, I'm 6'5". Longoria was probably like 4'11". He had to get a waiver to get in. I don't think he was really that little, but he was tidy. We became really good friends throughout the time. I have a bunch of photos of me next to him. I still actually remember one time when we were in this big auditorium, and they're like, who's the tallest guy? Stand up in here. And I stood up. And they're like, who's the shortest guy? And he happened to be right next to me, and he stood up. And he's like, now how tall are you going to be when someone starts firing shots at you? And I was like, I just pointed at him. Everyone laughed. I pointed at him. Everyone laughed. But like Cherry, Longoria, I think Cartwright, and all these people. And then, so they all end up going to the line companies. But since I got Presidential Guard, they're like, no, you're going over here now. Yeah. You're going up to Chesapeake, Virginia for Security First School. You're going to D.C. till your clearance goes through. Then you're going to choose where you want to go. So as they go to their companies, and I was supposed to, I was actually on the list to go to 2-3, I think it was, with the rest of them, because they're in blocks.
They were going to 2-3?
They were just like, A's through H's, you're going to 2-3. This through this, you're going to here.
That's crazy. And, I went to 2-3.
I think it was 2-3. I could be wrong because it was so long ago.
Wow.
But actually, I could probably look up on the Face of the Fallen where they ended up, because obviously it says who they were with. So after this, I'll look that up.
Okay.
But they just sent us in blocks because it was wartime. So it was no like picking and choosing who goes where. It was just like A's through H's, you're going to this one, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to be on there until someone complained and said, no, we're supposed to go up to Camp David, or we're supposed to go to DC. So I ended up going there. They go off to war, and one by one, I'm like, oh, Longoria died. Oh, Cherry died. Oh,
Jesus.
and I'm just like sitting here like, holy crap, like, is my whole class going to die? And so I had survivor guilt before I knew what survivor guilt was, because I kept thinking, like, why would God put me here when all my friends had to go there? Like, there's got to be a reason why I'm here. But I still felt like a piece of for not being there.
Yeah.
So I still go through the 2 months of security force school before I get to DC, and I start doing. The thing about DC too is it doesn't, even though you got selected for the Yankee White program, which is Guardian President, doesn't mean you're going to get it. So you could still go through the FBI check, because they actually send people to your house and do all this stuff just to make sure you are who you're supposed to be, and that you didn't swindle them in some way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm sitting here looking at my background, like, all my siblings, even my sister, have been to prison, jail, poor family. They probably think we'll be enticed by money. Like, it's probably not good.
It's like the hardest security clearance they can
I
ever give out.
legitimately thought that I was not going to get it, because we
Yeah.
had some people who were there lifetime. Like, they were just in DC until they couldn't be in the Marine Corps anymore, because their clearance just never went through. They kind of stayed in limbo. And so I was afraid I wasn't going to get it, but 11 months later, they ended up calling my name. And so they said, they give you a choice, White House Communications, Camp David, and I'm a country boy. And so I was like, I want Camp David, because I just heard it was so much better.
Yeah.
So I chose Camp David, and I was up there for 14 months. And then that first sergeant, the same one that was, I'm pretty sure that was doing our interviews a long time ago, he told me that they had limited manpower up there. So if I wanted to stay, I could, because typically 14 months at camp, you can move on.
14 months at Camp David?
Yep. And then you'll just move on. Another class will come up, or it kind of cycles through. And they said, hey, we're actually in a weird spot. We need a few more bodies. If you want to stay, you can. And I was like, with all due respect, I was like, I didn't join the Marine Corps to go, and I'm not going to be a lifer anymore. At first, when I joined, I was like, for life. Now I'm like, not for life.
Yeah, not for life.
Because I already saw like what was happening there.
Yeah.
But I said, I cannot get out of the Marine Corps not serving the way I need to.
The way
like,
you wanted to.
Yeah, the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, send me out. So they sent me to Unit 27. So I was with 27.
Oh, in 29 Palms.
Yep, doing the workup with them.
What company?
27 Fox.
27 Fox.
My buddy went to, what do you call it? 27 Weapons.
Okay.
My other buddy was with me at 27 Fox too, like my BFF, my ride or die. He was with me.
Yeah.
I guess they both were, but one went. I was sad when the other one went away.
Yeah.
But 27 Fox, and we started doing workup with them too, and we were about to do range 400 and everything when they're like, hey, by the way, Casper, you don't make our deployment. You get out in June of 2007, and we leave in January 2007. So you can't go with us, because you'd be getting out when we're still there. And I didn't want to do a 4-year extension, but I just wanted to go. So I said, well, who are the next unit deploying? Like, send me the next people deploying. So they said, well, there's actually a unit. Me and my buddy Jeremy are the only two that volunteered. They volunteered like 16 other people, but me and my buddy Jeremy, who was at camp with me, were the only ones that volunteered, because we're like, we need to get out of here. They said, Tow Platoon, which is a part of First Tanks, still in 29 Palms.
Yeah.
They're like, Tow Platoon just had a huge boot drop, but they have like 0 senior, like corporals and up. Like nobody with combat experience, and no corporals and up besides like 2 people. And so they took 16 hardened war dogs, like people who were they just did Fallujah when the sugar factory blew up and lost 10 guys. Like they just got off that deployment. They forced them to go to First Tows. And then me and my buddy Jeremy, who were like, let's go. Like we were excited about going. So we went over there with a brand new group of kids, and it was crazy because we went from pretty much training from ground infantry to mountain infantry. So even though it was tow platoon, we haven't shot a tow in Iraq, since Desert Storm or whatever. I don't even think we did it in the first push. So we were just mounted infantry at that point. So we didn't even have tows on our vehicles. We practiced with some tows, but we just had like the 50 cal Mark 19, all that.
Well, like the guys that normally fire tows are 0352s, and you were an 0311, right?
Yeah, but they put us there. So we were B-billet 0352s. So
all
of our boots were the 0352s. They were signed up. They legitimately moved us over there. A bunch of 0311s too.
What were your seniors like when you were in 27?
Seniors, I mean, they're hardcore because of what they had just been through.
Were they all guys?
Staff Sergeant Barrett, or Sergeant Major Barrett. He was not Staff Sergeant. He was the Sergeant Major 27 when I was there.
He was the Sergeant Major of 27.
Yeah.
Sergeant Major Barrett?
Yeah. He's the one I checked into, and I was like, yeah.
Wow.
I was like, that's pretty. Then I saw him
He became
go
the
on.
Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. He was the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps when I joined.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2014, he was the Sergeant Major.
He seemed so awesome then, too, because it was the first time interacting with someone who I felt like should have been meaner and scarier. And I was like, this guy actually seems pretty cool, pretty down to earth. And a really funny thing, too, my recruiter, Staff Sergeant Buttrey, ended up being at Fox, or at not Was he at Fox? He was in 2.7.
Really?
And here's the thing about me too. I've ridden Harleys since I've been like 18. All my friends are crotch rockets. Almost every Marine you meet is crotch rocket.
Yeah.
And I was the only one with a Harley. So this is one time I did get fraternized too, because since I was the only young Marine with a Harley, Staff Sergeant Buttrey had a Harley. And he's like, hey, come ride with us. So I rode with like 3 staff sergeants as like an E4. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Go to like Lake Havasu, just like, look what I'm doing.
But what were your seniors like? Were they like all Fallujah vets, or were they just like they were guys that did the initial push into Iraq?
So they did. It was I'm pretty sure it was initial push, because that's when that sugar factor. Because that's all I heard was they just got back, because that was when they're doing 7 months on, 7 months off.
Okay.
So we were in the transition phase where they just got back not too long ago.
Yeah.
And man, my buddies would talk about the sugar factory like over and over again. Pretty sure, or was it flour? I think it was a sugar factory. They said that they had, you know, how you have bad leadership in the Marine Corps, or they may be trying to like boost morale or something, but they felt like they should have an awards ceremony in the middle of Iraq, in the middle of like combat.
Yeah.
And so they gathered everyone, and they were going to do a promotion. And I could be getting this wrong, because again, I heard it way after, then it's been 20 years since then.
Yeah, yeah.
They were going to have some sort of promotion ceremony, and the factory was rigged with explosives. So when the first guy opened the door, it just blasted, and the first 10 guys just lost their lives like instantly.
Jesus.
But my buddies were talking about how they would just have black trash bags with, one had a blue tape on it, one had green tape, and one had red tape. So red tape was for body parts, green tape was for like gear and stuff, and I forget what blue tape was. Oh, weapons. Because that's how crazy it was. So they just got back from that, honoring all 10 of those who died at once, and then they're now training to go back.
Were they a little like?
They were real angry, because 2 of them already did, or a bunch of them already did 2 deployments, and this was their 3rd. Even my guy, one of my guys, I won't say his name just because I'm not sure how he feels about it, but he already did 2 deployments. He was the lead vehicle commander in the trucks with us. He ended up chewing through his leather gloves the first month deployment. I took his spot in the truck because he was having such bad anxiety attacks. Because you imagine going through 2 massive like first invasion deployments in Humvees that don't even have doors on it, watching your friends die, have 10 people killed around you, and now you got voluntold you're going back a 3rd time. A 4-year contract in the Marine Corps, and you go to Iraq 3 times. That's what those guys had to go through. I felt so bad for them. They're the best humans on earth, but I felt horrible.
Yeah. But that was, when you're talking about riding in trucks, you were already in the tanks, the first tanks tow platoon at that point?
No, because I was in 2.7 doing a workup for it.
Okay.
And so when they sent me to first tanks, which was the tow platoon, it was weird too, because it's the first time you weren't doing these huge company everything. Like everything you did at 2.7 was like you get out on the parade deck with the entire company pretty much.
Yeah.
There it was legitimately 60 people. You go to the tow ramp, and there's 60 people in your platoon. We actually deployed as a platoon attached to another unit. And so when we went there with someone else. And when we came back, we came up with someone else.
So tow platoon was attached to tanks, but they detached from tanks
to go over there
and get attached. Who did you get attached to?
Second AAVs.
Second AAVs?
Yeah.
From Camp Lejeune?
Yep. Again, because it was the timing. It was the timing thing. So
yeah.
Because they had tows and scouts, and they would do rotations. So at first tows would go over there, and then first tows would be there, then second tows would replace them, and then first tows would come back. It was kind of, because our whole mission now was to patrol MSR mobile and look for IEDs. So they had like one specific thing for tows to do across the board. Yeah. So that's why we kind of just cycled. So first tanks might go over there once and then wait a year and go back. And we were just cycling back and forth for first tows. It's like to get rid of the IEDs. But second AVs was tasked with the same thing.
Okay.
So we had to, you'd see them patrolling every once in a while too. We had the main MSR mobile from Abu Ghraib prison to the Tartar. And so when we go out there, we just chose what path we went, and we just circle 8 hours. I mean, we had to go on certain missions too, like when the downed pilot happened, like there was a downed, I don't know if it's Air Force or who it was, but we had to go search for parts. We went on this whole 3-day mission. And then we were attached to the Army a few times for IED clearing missions through Fallujah, which is pretty crazy as well.
This is 2007 going into 2008?
So now it's 2006. So I got to Iraq. Oh yeah. So I was doing my workup with tows, and then they hit me with hey, you don't meet our deployment. You get out too early for us too. And I was like, what's a guy got to do to get to Iraq around here?
Jesus. Yeah.
And so they said you could extend. Did you know you could extend 1 month in the Marine Corps?
No.
I had no idea. I didn't think. I didn't think that was possible. They said you could extend. If you look at my D214, I get in June 9th, I get out July 9th because I extended 1 month in the Marine Corps. I was like, I would have done this with 2.7 if you would have told me this is an option.
Yeah, nobody said that.
I thought it was 4 years or nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yes. I signed on that. I also got like 6 months of TRICARE after I got home. Like that was part of it. If you extend, you get extra TRICARE.
Extra.
I was like, sweet. TRICARE. Thanks for the bonus.
Yeah.
And so I go month, and here's another funny thing: SEPs and TAPs and all the stuff you have to do before you get out.
Yeah.
Because even though I extended a month, I was still going to get home less than a month of me getting out.
Yeah.
They made me do my separation and TAPs before I went to war. So I had to go through the whole like job interview, all the stuff like when you're getting out before I even left for Iraq. So usually they wait till you come home and they like do a whole transition right out. They just like, we don't have time. It's wartime. Everyone's like, it's 2006 and 7 is the highest rates of death. I think it was, if you look it up, it was like 1,000 in 2006 and 900 in 2007. And then it was an immediate drop off to like 400 the next year.
I wonder if that was because Ramadi was happening in 2006. And Ramadi was absolutely insane. Because a lot of guys I know that fought in the second battle of Fallujah said that Ramadi was just as bad.
No, it was. And that's what it was. I think it was during the second phase. It was in the second phase of Fallujah too. The second push was in 2006 and 7 as well.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on at the same time. So we get there
in 2006.
2006. I can't remember exactly if it was. I think it was October. I think we landed in maybe it was October. I always get the months wrong, like forget the months we get there. But we were doing a left seat, right seat with second toes.
Okay.
And at the time, because I was technically, even though I was an E4 and I was more senior than most people, I still was the dismount in the truck. So for everyone who doesn't know, we have our driver, we have our vehicle commander, we have a dismount and a gunner. Obviously, gunners in the 50 cal, the Mark 19 or the SAW, or the other 50 cal, I think it was. And so because I've never been to war before, I was a dismount, even though I was an E4.
And you were in 0311 too.
But yeah, it made more sense for me to be dismount.
Yeah.
And so, I was dismounting the second truck, and so when they were doing left seat, right seats, and this happened to my buddy Jeremy who went over with me. I think it was his platoon anyways, where it was to the point to where the second toes didn't have to do another left seat, right seat, but the guy wanted to make sure that we knew what we were doing. So he's like, hey, I'll go on another ride with you.
Yeah.
And they went down MSR Mobile towards the prison, and it was one of the largest IEDs that ever went off in Iraq. And it was because that's a 6-lane highway going through. MSR Mobile is like 3 lanes over here, 3 lanes over here with the median.
Oh.
And under it, the culver, what do you call those big circle?
Yeah, like a culvert.
Yeah, culver was stacked. They stuffed this thing with, and it ended up being a very complex ambush to where they blew that thing up. And luckily their chameleons were on. We had chameleons. I don't know if they called it something different. It was like the jammers that stopped IED transmissions coming in.
Yeah.
We had chameleons, and the Blue Force tracker was like how we saw everything.
Yeah.
Luckily, the chameleons were on when it blew up. And I mean, when I came to that scene, chunks of asphalt like this big were like thrown, it seems like miles away. It was insane.
Jesus.
So that went off. And so they all like cordon off around it, go. And then all of a sudden they start getting some, that went off. So they went down and looked at the wire, and they said there was like 3 wires, and they all kind of converged on one. So they sent a small party of like 4 people to follow the wire back to like the tiger grass. They were going to see if they could find like who instituted it or something.
Yeah, like a command link or something.
So they start going out that way, and they get to a point to where all of a sudden a sniper takes a shot from where the cars are. It was a complex ambush. They blew it up. They had that. When the sniper took the shot from behind them as they're walking up, hit the dude who didn't have to be there, shot the dude. He went down, and all of a sudden a bunch of fire starts coming from like the tiger grass or whatever. So it was a complex ambush. And so 2 of my friends got Bronze Stars that day from like what they did to get the trucks, because they were so far past them that they heard the one shot. They didn't know where it came from or what was going on. They didn't know there was a guy down. So my friends were like running to the trucks to get him, even though there's like bullets flying around them, like to go back and get the trucks to come out and get this guy. But the guy ended up passing away, which was so sad, because that was after they made the phone call, I'm coming home, because he didn't have to be on that mission.
Damn.
So that was like our introduction to Iraq. Be like, welcome to Iraq, boys.
Yeah.
And so
like a rough here.
It was, man. And so after that, it took about a month before I was telling my buddy who was like chewed through his leather gloves. He just couldn't handle it. So they put me, the other E4, that's the only E4 that's not in like a senior position. Actually before that, November 17th ish. I only know because I still have my charts. November 17th, we were rolling down the road, and we get hit by my first ever IED. You never forget your first.
You never forget your first. Jesus. It's like your first girlfriend or something.
So I get hit by this IED.
Where was this?
I mean, it was on MSR Mobile, and I didn't, because I'm in the back, I don't really see it coming. I mean, usually you don't see it coming anyways, but it was like directly, this one was on the right side, so it was probably the one that I was the furthest away from, but it hit us from the right side. I'm in that left passenger seat, and like it rocks us. It doesn't do anything besides blow out our tires, because again, it's from the side, but that concussion got us pretty good.
Yeah.
And I remember getting out, we assessed everything. After everything calmed down, I just kept on like, I was like, my chest hurts like really bad. But it was one of those things where you keep kind of like, what's wrong with my chest? So they called the radio and they just say like, hey, you know, Casper's chest. They didn't think we had concussions because it was a little bit farther away. But what they said when I went back was that the overpressure from the bomb going down like where the gunner is, it went down my throat and expanded my lungs so much it tore cartilage in my chest.
Holy hell,
it's called like castelphangitis, or there's a long technical term for it.
What about the gunner? How was
he was good too. He had a concussion. Like I didn't get the concussion, the gunner did, and I think the VC did.
Yeah.
But it was some freak thing where I don't know if I was just breathing the same time it blew up, but it all went down my lungs and expanded it to the point where it tore cartilage in my chest, which is crazy.
I've never heard of that.
Same. And when I was like, why is my chest hurt so bad? Because I'm protected by everything else.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the weirdest thing ever. So still technically didn't have a concussion that time.
Yeah.
So by December, I get moved up to the front truck to be lead vehicle commander. And my gunner at the time I'm almost certain he was with me in the second truck too. I think they moved us. No, he wasn't. He was the gunner. He was the lead gunner, but he was one of my, out of all the I know you joined the Marine Corps way later. Like he was one where he went to Texas. His name's Luke Hepson. He went to Texas A&M and went for like maybe years. Like screw this. He's like, I'm just gonna go enlisted. I want to be in the Marine Corps as enlisted. And so he joined the Marine Corps. And so he was less than probably a year. Actually, today's his birthday of all things too.
Really?
But yeah, so April 1st too, right? Crazy.
His birthday is April 1st.
Yeah. So his birthday is today.
Oh.
And he was one I instantly got along with. So before we went to war, he was in the boot drop too. So he was a few years older than everyone else. But he would just like, I would poke fun at him. He'd poke fun back at me because he's a little bit more mature too. And I went home and I had this tattoo, and it wasn't like this. It was just the cross in these angel wings. That was it. I designed it. I was like, oh, I kind of want to cross with a sash. The sash was there and some angel wings. So that's all it was by itself. The sash was open. Legit, I didn't know why the sash was really open. I was thinking maybe like my mom passed away way long in the distance. I'll put her name on there or something. Just someone I, adore and love. And so I'm walking by on the catwalk one night, and it's brand new. You could tell. And then Luke was like, oh, what's that? And I was like, oh, I just got this. He's like, why is the sash open? I was like, oh, in case anybody important to my life dies. He's like, if I die, would put me on there? I was like, no, your boot. I just started like, no, you're a boot, dude.
That's the most classic senior thing to say, though, man.
Yeah, fresh suede.
Yeah.
And I legitimately said, no, your boot. And he kind of chuckled, and I kept going because he was just sitting there talking to his fiance at the time.
Yeah.
And so now fast forward, I ended up being in his truck, and he's my gunner now because I'm first vehicle commander.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this normal patrol like anything else on the Tartar side now of MSR Mobile, like where we're driving up, and and I still actually have video footage. I had one of those 20 gigabyte like Zoom Sony cameras, like camcorders. It only held like 20 gigabytes. I still have like almost all of this stuff. And I see something in the middle of the road. We all do. It's very specific. You're like, this is a fake one, but they're probably setting it up. So I call back. We're Outlaw 1. Call back Outlaw 2. Say, hey, there's a fake ID up here, it looks like, but we're just going to go around it, and then we'll cordon it off and call an EOD. So we're driving down MSR Mobile going Tartar, which I think is north, if I remember correctly. So we cross over the bank to secure this side, cordon it off. And then truck 2 pulls up here. So we're both looking. So we're facing traffic, oncoming traffic. And then the other 2 trucks go the other way just to cordon off till EOD gets there. So we're waiting on it. And I get the video camera out, and I'm zooming in on it. And I think it was either a propane tank or a muffler. but it had antennas coming out of it. It was the fakest IED you could ever see. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I'm like zooming in on it. And then I get out. And for people who don't know, like you're always worried about snipers, but I didn't have any direct intel. Nobody told me that there were snipers in the area. It's just you assume there might be.
Yeah.
So when I go to pee, I'm like, I go to the back left tire and I pee, but I start doing this thing.
The peeking?
Just being a hard target. They always told us just be a hard target. So even if you're standing still for a minute, just sway. So they had to teach us that too. So I'm like peeing and just swaying. Just being a hard target just in case.
Being a wacky flailing inflatable tube man.
Yeah, I was like, and so I go to get back in the truck, and I have this video too. I'm a dork. I'm a jokester. I turn the camera around and I'm looking at it, and and it's cold in December in Iraq. People don't think it's cold, and when you see the video, it doesn't look cold. But I have like my neck gaiter up to here and my helmet on, and I'm like, I'm just gonna get back in the truck just in case there's snipers out here, and like shut the door. And I'm sitting there, and these vehicles start pulling closer, like as they do. And this is where kind of media and stuff kind of ruins it for us trying to do the right thing, like with ROIs. So in Iraq at the time, the rules of engagement on vehicles coming towards you, and I'll probably get a few of these out of order, but it was stupid. If a vehicle came up, they have this little orange flag. So Luke waves this little orange flag because they kept pulling up. He kept saying, hey, stop, something bad's going to happen, stop. And he puts it back down. Technically, if the car keeps coming, you're then supposed to pop a flare.
A pin flare,
we had flares.
Yeah.
If they kept coming, you're then supposed to shoot in the air. If they keep coming, you're supposed to shoot in the ground. If they keep coming, you're supposed to shoot at I think it was like top left window. If they keep coming, then you shoot at the engine block. And if they keep coming, you shoot them. Like, that's ridiculous anyways.
That's a whole lot of steps.
It's a whole lot of, that's why a lot of people died. I felt like because they were trying to do the right thing instead of just reacting because they thought they were going to get in trouble, because the media would be like, look, they shot this unarmed person. It's like, no, there's reasons why we get into this. Anyways, they kept pulling up. So he waves his flags, and all I could see of Luke, just to paint the picture, is I'm right here in the vehicle commander spot, which is the driver's seat. We have my big Blue Force tracker, and Luke's feet are right here. And he's sitting on a little, like, I don't even know what you call those in the turrets.
It's
like
gunner
little,
seat?
Yeah, the little gunner seat turret swing. It's like a little hammock for your butt.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there, and I was like, hey, and this is the time too where the Marine Corps, we only had, actually it was like, if I'm the gunner, this is as high as my metal came. Like, this was so the gun's here and the metal only comes up to here. So you're completely exposed here up.
Yeah.
Army's cruising around with turrets at the time, like they're inside the truck rolling around, digital turrets. Not all of them had it, but it was at the stage where a few of them did.
Wow.
The other ones just had full canopies over them. Marine Corps, we're still rolling around with like the little metal up to here.
Yeah.
And so I just told him to get down just in case the snipers too, because the cars were being pretty tame. They weren't doing anything crazy. So he'd like slip his feet down. I'd see his feet scoot all the way up to the Blue Force tracker, and then all of a sudden I'd see him like scoot his feet this way, which means he was starting to stand up again. And I was like, Luke, you want to end up on my arm, don't you? And he like looks down. He's like, it'd be an honor to be on your arm, Corporal Casper. And then he waves him again, and then he sits down for a minute, and then a sniper shot and killed him. And so it was 10 minutes after that he was shot, and I had the bullet in my pocket for a while because he was holding the gun, the 50 cal like this, and you know how we had the side sappy plates?
Yeah.
So it went between that, like this 4-inch gap right here. The sniper hit right here, both lungs, and it was embedded in his arm over here. And so like I had that bullet in my pocket for a little bit before I had to turn it over, but he went straight down into the truck. You couldn't tell. It was like being at the range when you're pulling down the things. Like, you know, the rip of when the bullet hits the paper, there's like that sonic rip of the paper.
Yeah.
That's all we heard. I didn't even know he was shot at first because I just hear that snap like I'm at the gun range. I'm like, Luke, are you all right? And he kind of falls down in the seat. And he says, I don't know. Those were his like last words. He says, I don't know. Passes out. Gilroy, the dismount now. I'm like, get him out. I call the corpsman, say Luke's shot. Well, Yepsen shot. And all of a sudden, the truck rolls around. The truck thought it was a different truck that was shot because we went left and not straight. They went to first truck. Then they came to second truck. And we're just sitting. By the time I get out and I look and he's on the ground, luckily there was an Army unit close by that heard the radio call too. At one point we had 3 corpsmen working on him, like Army medic and 2 corpsmen working on him when they got him onto the bird. I just remember going back because at that point I was useless. After he got out, I told Gilroy to strip him and get him out of the truck. I walk around, just remember seeing him walk back, sit in my truck, and I'm just like, these 2 guys are his best friends. Like he was one of my best friends in Iraq, not my best friend. I didn't have long enough to create like that friendship, but he was one of the guys I cared about the most in the truck. But I'm sitting here thinking the driver and the dismount are his best friends. Like they're I forget, one of them I think was rooming with him, and I'm sitting here thinking like I'm gonna have to put one of them in a seat too tomorrow. And I'm just there's so many things going through my mind at that point. They put him on the bird, and then we just go on patrol. We actually also, because we turned him around, we went a totally different direction for the sniper. We thought he was on the right side because when we said he got shot in the left and they pulled him out, I think Gilroy, because he had his body positioned differently, they thought that the sniper came from a different direction. So we go off on this whole little rampage trying to find where this guy came, thought it was in the farms, when we should have known it came from probably the Mott gas station over here.
Yeah.
So we go on this whole thing, and then like 30 minutes later, they called us back to the ramp, and we go back, and that's when they told us that Luke passed away. And it was like worst day of my life. I've told this story over 100 times now. That's why it's not as sad. It is sad, but it's just horrible that he had to go through that. But I'm thankful that he didn't know he was shot, because he said, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the part that's like just being me listening to you saying that, like you were kind of joking around about it just beforehand, and then and then he gets
legitimate
shot.
10 minutes. I have it on camera. It's like 10 to 15 minutes before.
Yeah, how old was he?
He was 21 at the time, I think it was.
Young kid.
He just turned 21 or he was 20. But because I think he was only less than a year behind me. Because I was only a kid too at the time. I guarded the president, and now I'm a 21-year-old kid watching my friend die beside me and blown up once at this point. And so that was the thing they don't talk about and even I didn't think about. There's something in your head where, because you're in the Marine Corps, you go about your day, you work 7 days a week sometimes you work 5 days a week, and then you have to go in every once in a while. When I was going to war, it never occurred to me. It seems like people are like, that's stupid. It never occurred to me that I was going to work every single day for 7 months.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where you're like, I'm going to war, but you still don't think every single day I'm going to work. So knowing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, tomorrow we're going to work the next day. There's no time off. It's like your friend just died. You want 24 hours off? They don't do that.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
The next day, I legitimately had to say, Gilroy, you're in his seat now. And so Gilroy gets up in his seat. Now he's on the gun, and I have one less person. They didn't have anybody to backfill him. So
did Gilroy and the driver? Was Gilroy the driver?
No. At the time, he was. They every once in a while they switched out actually, but technically Moore was my driver, and then Gilroy was my dismount, and then Yepsen was my gunner.
Did they ever talk to you about like what was going through their heads after that happened?
No. Well, Gilroy, he actually went through my songwriting program years later, so we reconnected a little bit, but I never went in depth around that conversation because it's so hard to go through Gilroy's probably 1,000 miles a minute. He tried to do he did more than Moore did. Moore's awesome. I mean, everyone's awesome, and it was nobody's fault in the situation, but it was just kind of, I remember looking at Moore and seeing him just stare off to space too, just thinking like, what's going to happen? Because that was their first real experience with war at all. Mine too, besides being blown up earlier in a different truck.
Yeah.
And then so I had to go to work the next day like nothing ever happened. I can't be mad at the people and the kids running around because there's nothing. I don't know who did it. They're from Syria, from Iran, from Iraq, whatever sniper it was. And so we just go back to normal. And then that was in December. And then January 2nd, I was blown up again. It was 2 130 stacked. Just probably, we're driving in the middle of the road. So there's that little like 8 feet of road and then the dirt. And I got hit by a double stack there, which caused a concussion. That is so weird, like the taste of burnt dirt, like all over. Because I mean, it instantly fills the entire truck, which is like burnt. You just taste. It's the weirdest thing. That's like one of the things I remember most. But after that one, I remember getting out of the truck. You know how like if you're looking for your keys and you check your pockets, and then like 2 minutes later you'll check your pockets again, the same exact pocket.
Yeah.
I was doing that with my legs. I kept on. I was like, is there shrapnel in my leg? My legs hurt so bad. Everything else was fine, but my legs just hurt so bad after the blast. And I just kept checking if there's blood. But I realized like sappy plates and everything else was protecting from the concussion of the blast, but my legs just took the brunt of it. So they were just in so much pain, I think, from the instant seizure. There's probably a doctor out there who can explain why it hurt so bad, but it felt like there was shrapnel on my leg, but it was just from the typical blast.
Wow.
So then the luckiest day of my life ever happened. We were supposed to have 24 hours off after a concussion, your first concussion. And he gave me like 23 hours off. And he's like, you're going back out there.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
And pretty much it was the same scenario. And we're driving and we're going down this road. It was daylight this time. At nighttime, we cruise with NVGs and our IR or whatever they're called on the front of our vehicles.
Yeah.
Pitch black. But it was daylight for this patrol. And a ploof of smoke or something went off beside us. So my gunner sees it and he's like, hey, I think someone just shot at us, or there's something. So I'm like, hey, Outlaw 2, the gunner saw a ploof of smoke or something. Can you check that? And he went up. He's like, dude, that's an IED. So we cordon it off again. Comes out, it's 2155 African white with white phosphorus.
With white phosphorus.
The blasting cap went off only because they didn't set it up right. And it was going to be blasted on our truck.
Wow.
Talk about, and that's
would have
one
been
thing.
Incinerated.
Yeah, that would have ended us. And I'm just even think, I just got chills in my body because I tell all these other stories, but I rarely tell that one. Honestly, I kind of forget, but I'm like, man, how lucky. And that was right after Luke died. And I'm just sitting here like, holy crap. Like, how lucky am I to be here?
Yeah. In one piece with with your face.
For that to happen. Yeah. And so then, January 17th. So January 6th. And I remember because I have all my like logs from when I got my concussion reports and everything.
Yeah.
So now January 17th rolls around. I get hit again. This one was a weird one because this one hurt the most, but it was just a box on the side of the road. It looks so nonchalant. Usually they're putting them in animals or underground or something or in trash. This one looked like a box, a random box, and not like a wood box. It was like this big and square. I was so nonchalant. And I remember that hit us like directly on the side. Again, every time we got blown up, it would take out our tires in some form or fashion and leave shrapnel all over the trucks. Luckily, we had, I think it was like this, I don't know if it was second or third generation up armor, where it's only the doors that are up armored. So the floor's not, we still have to put stuff down on the ground and the backs weren't. So we'd have huge holes ripping through the back of our truck. But we wouldn't have, on the doors, there's like softball size just breaks in the glass from the IEDs.
It's a good thing that you had that.
And at least we had doors.
I mean, it would have just shredded
that's the only
whole
thing. Oh, yeah, that first one would have took me out if it wasn't for that, I think.
Yeah.
And so at this point, they give us 2 weeks off because it was my third time being blown up, my second concussion. And they said, hey, if you get one more concussion, you're not allowed to work anymore, technically, because 3 concussions and you're unfit for duty. So they said, since you have been in the first truck, so I was in the second truck, first time I got blown up. I was in the first truck, lead vehicle, so we keep getting hit. I got hit twice. And they're like, hey, we're going to move you and Gilroy to the fourth truck because if you both get another concussion, you're out. And the fourth truck has never been hit in their whole career in Iraq, right?
I bet they moved you and it got hit.
So they moved
I
me to the
bet
fourth.
that's what freaking happened
So
with your luck, man.
We're patrolling like normal. And then all of a sudden, so 2-7, my old unit, was just getting to Iraq, and they were taking over for 2-8 that was there. There was something called like the 2-8 bridge that turned into the 2-7 bridge because they were on this bridge that oversaw MSR Mobile. Yeah. They also were in charge of MSR Lincoln. Lincoln went directly along Mobile, but it was like almost like it was 2-lane, but it was like a backwoods country road where a Humvee barely fit on it. Like you couldn't fit 2 Humvees like side by side really on it because that's how small the road was. And it ran just parallel with MSR Mobile. For 2 weeks, 2-8 left that. Like when 2-8 left, they left MSR, like 2-7 was supposed to actually take over the road, and they never did. And so 2 weeks went by, and they were like, hey, let's send first tows down that road to secure it because they've been securing MSR Mobile. So we were the first unit to go on that road for the very first time. And I remember we started at maybe 5 a.m., 4 a.m. when it was really dark. And we're just driving along. And like the moment the day broke, it was like a beautiful sunrise. And then all of a sudden, this is the first time I got blown up from directly underneath. And luckily, it was the engine block rather than right under me. But it just all of a sudden, blew. And I mean, just everything. I don't think I lost consciousness, but it was one of those where you're just like, because it definitely wasn't long no matter what. But I just remember being lifted up in the air. And then all of a sudden I remember like open my eyes and be like, what just happened? So both tires were immediately blown out, but it was enough to where it could like chug a few forward. And typically every time we got hit, the truck behind us or the truck in front of us, depending on where we're at. Now we're 4 trucks. So the truck in front of us, we're supposed to, if we can, pull all the way up to them so they can assess our damage from the windows before they actually get out. Because in case it's a sniper attack, like they blow it up just to get us to get out of the truck.
Yeah.
And so we only pull up a few, so they decide to turn around and come to us. And I see in this little rear view that the entire road is gone that we were just at, like behind us. So I'm watching them drive up, and I watch them get blown up right in front of, like, same scenario where it's buried so far underground, though, it's concussions and hurt, and it hurts really bad. But it's enough to where, again, it only blows out their tires, too.
So you were watching this in your mirror?
No, I looked in my mirror, and the road behind me is gone, and I looked forward for them. They turned around to come to us to assess our damage, and I watched them get hit.
While they're facing you.
And then, yeah.
Oh, my God.
And then, so, luckily, concussions were had, but they still had enough to, like, pull up next to us. And so we're looking at each other, and I'm seeing the road in front of us gone. The road behind us pretty much gone. And that was legitimately the first time I was like, I'm about to die. There's one right below me. I'm about to die. And so I'm playing that in my head. And we sit through long enough to where we like decide to get out on the door side. So we knew if there was a sniper, they wouldn't get us anyways. We change out all the tires. We get back on the road to go to this little fob that was we were still really far away from Camp Fallujah to get assessed there. So we got enough. We waited for another unit to come and replace us. And so we go back to this little fob just to get checked out, and they're like, "This is your 3rd concussion. You can't work anymore, right?"
They confirmed with you that you had.
They confirmed it. They're like, "Hey, you can't work anymore." All this stuff. Then we get a call on the radio. The people who just replaced us got hit so hard that there's a medevac. Like, it's the doors blown off, the windows gone. Like, there's blood everywhere. Like, they're like, "You guys need to go back."
On this 1-lane dirt road
back on
you
that,
were just
yeah,
on.
back on. It wasn't dirt. It was it was where they could melt down the road, put a bomb there, and seal it back up like the old tar roads.
Okay.
But it's still like a barely, like 2 little Iraq cars can get by, but 1 Humvee pretty much.
Yeah.
And so what happened too is when he was blown up, and that was the bigger one, instantly the driver had to be medevaced. I mean, everything was crushed. His entire left and right side, or left side, was crushed. But because it was blown up, he actually steered into some Iraqis, like an Iraqi family's car, and they had to be medevaced. But in my head, as a faith-based person, I was like, wait, you're sending me back out there? I'm supposed to die. I think I was supposed to die out there, and I didn't. And now God's kind of rewriting the story and making me go back out to die, because they just said I couldn't work anymore. They just said my next trip would be Camp Fallujah, and then I'd be done working because I'm unfit for duty after my 3rd concussion. Now they're saying I'm going to go back out and take over patrol because these guys are hurt worse than us, and they need to get medevac. So we drove back there, man, on that same road, and I remember seeing the craziness of the car, the Humvee door being missing. I still don't know where the glass went. The glass is like this thick in the door, and it just wasn't anywhere.
And this is the same day that you had just been blown up.
Like an hour later. Like, they just went and took over for us. And then by the time we got there, got checked out, they were already hit, and we had to go back.
God.
Another ID went off that day too, and like there ended up being like 4 people who couldn't work anymore, and just it was horrible. And but I drove back out there, and I remember the medevac coming in. They already medevaced the guy who was hurt, Weimer, who was like being medevaced out, and they came back for the civilians who were injured. Like, they had blood all over their head, and like we wrapped them and sutured them up and stuff, and we're waiting for the medevac. And I remember still thinking I was going to die. I still got out of the truck. I thought I was going to probably be sniped, but I was like, you know what? I still can't just show up and not do anything. I'm a leader in this. So I get out. I remember running over there, checking on them, and my buddy, I think it was Egress, had them all wrapped up. Or no, Mills. One of them had them all wrapped up. It wasn't even a corpsman. It was just a guy who knew basic combat lifesavers, had them wrapped up really nicely. And then I was like, you guys good? You guys good? And then the chopper came. We started moving them. I was like, I'm just going to go back to the truck. And I just went back to the truck and sat there. The entire drive back to Fallujah, I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. It was the worst anxiety I've ever felt in my life. Like, no, I was like, in my head, I knew I was going to die. I was just waiting for it. But we got back to Camp Fallujah, and I didn't die. And
in Fallujah.
Yeah, so this
Camp Fallujah's in
Camp Fallujah's, yeah, in Fallujah.
Or was in Fallujah.
Yeah, and so I get back there, and they don't send me home. They don't send me to get a CAT scan. They don't do anything. And so For the next 4 months, I'm just COG of Camp Grizzly. Camp Bellawood, it switched when I was there. Same camp inside of Camp Fallujah, but they switched names. I forget which one was first. I just had to be a COG of Camp Grizzly, waiting my time out until I flew back. And so I forget what it was, June, super late May or June or whatever, I flew back. And then I was already checking out because I also had like 60 days of leave built up. And that's why I was able to check out pretty much 3 days after touching down from Iraq. I checked out of the Marine Corps. Wow. But they said, they're like, do you need to see medical? And I was like, I don't think so, because you didn't send me to see medical. And I didn't have to use my brain.
So I would have expected that if I needed to.
I'm like, you guys are the smart ones.
Yeah.
They kept saying they were going to send me to Balad when I was over in Iraq, and they just never did. So I just assumed, I was like, oh, I must be getting better. Because I don't know. I've never been blown before. I don't know what the brain does. I'm from a small Ponuk town where they don't teach you this stuff. So,
did anything eventful happen when you went back to Camp Fallujah for the rest of the time that you were there, the rest of the duration?
No, here's the crazy thing. Nobody ever got hit. For the next 4 months, not one truck got hit.
Really? So all of the IED blasts happened while you were actively going out?
Yeah. Crazy, right? My buddy was killed. I was blown up 4 times. Nobody else was blown up 4 times either. 3 times Gilroy, 4 times me. My friend died, and after that, it was all peace. It was the weirdest thing ever. I know. I still think about it sometimes. Weird. So I come back home, check out the Marine Corps, go back to good old Washburn, Illinois. No, I actually go to Bloomington, Illinois, which is a little bit bigger, Bloomington and Normal. And I'm like, you know what? Well, first I took 6 months off. I had a Harley at the time. I took it to Sturgis. I did all the fun things. Actually, here's another fun story. When I was in Iraq, I had this like 06 Road King, and it didn't have front fairing on it. And my buddy had this company that did front fairings. It was like $2,000. So I sent it home because it had like a Kenwood speaker system in it. It was like a real fairing that I could just clip onto my bike.
Yeah.
So I send money back home while I'm in Iraq to put this front fairing on my bike. And so when I get home, I have this bike, and I rode it cross country, see my girlfriend at the time up in Pennsylvania. And we spend time with her and my best friend, Mike Gately, who has this like RX-7, like little rotary engine, little mini car. And we're like, okay, let's drive back to Illinois now. And I'm going to ride my Harley back to Illinois. And we decided to leave it like super late because we didn't want traffic. So it had to be, I don't know, probably like midnight or something. And we start driving. We're in the back roads of Maryland, like just going in and out. And I'm sitting there listening to the song, Bucky Covington's song. I just remember the line where it's like, we rode bikes with no helmets and still here we are. And I was wearing a fake helmet because I didn't like the big dot helmets. I had like one of those fake kind of German style, like thin ones that I just put a dot sticker on it.
You were wearing a fake helmet on your motorcycle?
I had the real one in my saddlebag, like the real thick one in my saddlebag. I was wearing a fake one. And I'm cruising.
That's the craziest thing for a dude who's had 3 concussions to do,
and
man.
So I'm just cruising, living my life. I almost died so much. I want to live, man.
I want to live, man.
Livin. And I'm just cruising, and all of a sudden the deer comes out. I hit a deer going 55 on my Harley.
With your fake helmet on?
With my fake helmet. But that actually saved my life. So they said because of how much I rolled, you ever put on a football helmet and try to do a crunch?
Yeah, I think so.
I rolled so many times that if there was any weight on my head, I would have snapped my neck. So like that helmet that I had that was heavy would have been like, blah, 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 and I would have cracked my neck. And so I had this deer going 55, tucked and rolled, and ended up only with, like my fingernail grows in differently right here. It was a slight hairline fracture here and a little one here and no broken bones, no nothing. That was the moment. I remember still being in the hospital bed, and I was like in high spirits talking. And when they picked me up, they're like, we thought you were dead. 2 days ago, someone hit a deer and they died on a Harley. And I was just like, but it was funny since I had Mike behind me though. Mike comes running up behind me. He saw everything. He's just like, just dropping the F-bomb,
yeah.
Running up. I hear him. He comes up to me. He's like, dude, are you all right? I was like, Mike, get my real helmet. He went over to my bike, pulled out my real helmet, and I just kind of moved my head up, and he put it on my head, and I laid back down. So when the ambulance got there, I wasn't going to be written up for no helmet.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to go to jail. Please put on my real helmet.
So I put on a real helmet, which is super funny. But I remember the drive back, and I'm just like with the nurses and stuff, or the people in the ambulance, EMTs, and they thought I was going to die. And there was that moment where I said, well, God's got something for me. Like there's an intention for my life. It was so clear that whatever was going to cross my path, I was just going to do. And that's important to the story because I would have never chose art. Like I love to doodle and stuff, but I was not like art.
Yeah.
So I get out of the Marine Corps and I take 6 months off, I take my new Harley to Sturgis. Got right back on.
Yeah, you just well,
hair,
fell off.
Hair of the dog.
Yeah.
I got right back on. Took it to Sturgis, did live my life for a little bit. And that 6 months, I didn't have to use my brain very much. Going to war is one of the simplest things in your mind because you legitimately just say, don't die. Like that's your thought process is don't die. You're not, I need to pay rent today. I need to go get groceries. That's what I mean by easy. Not like it's easy to be in war, but it's an easy mentality. If you're just like, I'm just going to go out, try not to die and come back. You forget about everything else. So you don't use your brain. That's why that 4 months I was there, I didn't use my brain much because I was like, I'm pretty safe, but I'm not worrying about bills. I'm not worrying about anything besides writing home.
Yeah.
So now I have 6 months I'm taking off when I get home from war. I'm not using my brain again. I'm just riding my Harley to Sturgis, hanging out with friends, doing some stuff. And I decide, okay, time for me to get a job and go to school. Well, with a really poor family and a Montgomery GI Bill, so not the post 9/11 GI Bill, Montgomery GI Bill, I was like, I'm going to go to a community college for 2 years, get my associates, and then go to state college for the next 2 years and collect on the Illinois grant for veterans, which gave me money, and the Montgomery GI Bill, which gave me money.
Did you have the option to select the post 9/11 at that
Not
point?
yet. No. In 2003, it wasn't in existence. At least they didn't give us that option. The only option I had was to pay extra on my Montgomery GI Bill, which gave me another year, which I'm glad I did, because after I was done with it, they gave me a year of the post 9/11 because I paid extra on the Montgomery GI Bill.
Okay.
So I started going to school and I started working at like Dick's Sporting Goods or something, and that was the first time that I started realizing my brain there was an issue there. The first one was like when I was trying to put up all those little stickers for the fishing reels or like fishing lures, my mind would slow down so much that it felt like a laggy computer where if I like scanned this room right now, it was like chunks were missing. But it was only when I was in environments that had a lot, like my eye was looking a lot of places, like all those little QR codes or barcodes. And then if I would go to a mall, same thing, extreme headaches and like laggy. My brain would just lag. Then when I started going to school, and it reminds you, I guarded the president. I was prom king, class clown, could do anything in front of anybody. I started physically getting sick before school. The biggest issue was if I didn't know someone was in the classroom, I couldn't go in there. I had to be the first one in there. So I didn't want people's eyes on me for some reason. I didn't want to be the center of attention, and I couldn't speak in front of people. And so I had to end up doing one-on-one speeches with my speech teacher in college because I couldn't get up in front. I'm feeling like a piece of crap. I'm like, these 18, 19-year-old kids with no life experience are getting up there reading their little papers. I actually wrote a paper on helmet loss or helmets and how they save your life by not having them. That's a whole other conversation.
You wrote a paper about how not wearing helmets saved your life? Oh, my God.
There's a lot to it.
No,
they cause more accidents than they help because they were only up to 35 miles. They're only rated at 35 miles, and the weight of them and the heat that they provide on your head actually makes you more sleepy, and they take away 6% of your total peripheral vision. So I was writing more of like hey, here's some statistics that show that by me wearing a helmet, I'm actually more likely to get in an accident. Yes, it would save me at a very high speed if I did, but I'm trying to avoid accidents. Anyways.
So, but anyway, so as far as your speech class, like, you're saying that there's a bunch of people, like the students would be going up there giving their speeches, and they're like little 18-year-old kids. Did you have a conversation with your professor about like, hey, look, I've got some brain trauma. I'd rather not talk about it.
Yeah.
Did you even tell them anything?
No, I had to go. I went directly to her and I said, hey, this sounds crazy, but like, I can't get in front of class. I said, I have issues. And I went to the VA, finally went to the VA 6 months later too. And that's when they diagnosed me with my left traumatic brain injury and my PTSD and my anxiety and depression and all that. And so I just went to her and said, hey, I went through so much in Iraq. There's something stopping me from getting up. And she's like, we'll figure it out. I still remember, I wish I could remember his name. There's this lovely older Asian man taking like continuing education classes that I just really liked. Everyone else 18, 19 on this. And then I had this guy in the class who spoke like broken English and everything. Because I just had a flashback to it because I remember I was doing one-on-one speeches with her. Like I'd go to a room and do it with her, which also made me feel like because every other kid in there was realizing I wasn't getting up. So also I felt weird about that. I was like, they know I'm not getting up. Like, what do they think of me?
Yeah.
But I remember when I got to the point to where they were like, hey, can we have one other kid at least, or one other person in here? And I was like, I wanted the older Asian guy. I was like, pick him because he was so mature. And I feel like he would be able to understand me a little bit more because he's older. And so they let him sit on it as I did my paper too. I'd just be like reading my paper to her for speech class. Because in Illinois, you had to take speech. It wasn't like I could just avoid it. I had to take it.
Okay.
So
It was like a gen ed kind of.
Yeah, it was like the one thing you had to take. I was like, this is stupid.
There's a lot of that.
So I started, and then my first business classes I took, I failed too. And that's when I found out I really had this issue. And when I got diagnosed with my TBI, they were like, you probably won't be able to learn new technical skills. You're going to be back. There's just all these things that you don't say now to people with brain injuries, but they didn't know in 2007. And so if 0 was taking my life, I was at like a 9. Like my faith in God was legitimately the only thing keeping me above water. It was the only thing keeping me for air. And I started thinking back, and I was like, you know what? I guarded the president of the United States. I have a above top secret clearance. That's what Yankee White means. I was President's Yankee White Category 1. I was in Yankee White Category 2 because I had a loaded gun next to the president. There's a photo of me and George Bush that I have in my house. It's like I'm in my flight suit with my pistol next to me. So like you had to have a pretty high clearance to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And so I was like, I did that. What if I don't need a business degree, a criminal justice degree? The one thing I remember from when I did my TAPS and separation class was I just need a degree. I just could get any degree I want. So I said, you know what? I'll get the easiest degree I know, art. I'll be around these kids who are anxious for other reasons. I don't have to talk to them. They don't want to talk to me. I had a full stereotypical art kids are weird. I could be with them because they won't talk to me. That was my intention.
They'll leave me alone.
At a community college, they'll leave me alone. I won't talk to them, and it's going to be easy. It's art. So I was like, you know what? I'm tired of failing these classes. If I get a degree in art, I'm going to apply for FBI or CIA, something more high speed, because I didn't just want to go, because I knew I could probably go to the FBI or CIA without a degree, but I couldn't be an agent, like a field agent without a degree. So my intention, art degree, FBI, CIA, something cool. And so I'm taking some basic drawing classes, some creative writing classes, but in the back of my mind, I'm still like suffering from Luke's death and not being able to talk about him. And so,
because it was still very fresh.
Oh yeah,
relatively speaking, compared to now. Now that you said, you've
December
talked
2006, he was killed. In like 2008, I'm in school.
Yeah, because you said you've probably told the story hundreds of times now.
Now,
at this point.
yeah.
So it's taken that power away from it after all of these years of talking about it over and over again.
Yeah.
Whereas like you probably didn't really talk about it very much back then.
No, I couldn't. I wanted everyone to know that he lived. That was I wanted to talk about him as a person because I never wanted him to truly die. You die twice in your life, the moment you're gone and the moment the last person speaks your name.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want Luke to live forever. But I was restricted from telling people about him because I'd bawl. I was like, hey, Luke. And I would be like, I'm not going to cry in front of people. I have a Harley. I'm a Marine. I was like, I'm not crying in front of people.
Yeah.
So my brain was conflicting on how do I tell his story without actually telling his story. And so I would go to his grave every single year. I didn't know his family either. That was the scariest part. I remember looking up in the white paper, like there were the white pages and yellow pages. White pages were like where everyone's contact was. I looked up Houston, Texas, and because I had their name from his parents' names when they sent me care packages. So I looked up their phone number. And I called them one day and said, hey, you don't know me. I was Luke's vehicle commander, but I'm going to come to his grave. I just want to let you know I'm going to be in the area. That's it. Because I flew just to go visit his grave in 2008, December 2008, on the day he died. And so...
How did that conversation go with them?
Well, it was crazy because I just called and left a message. And then I'm pretty sure when I was in the airport, because my idea, I was going to fly to Dallas to meet my uncle and we're going to drive down to Houston to visit his grave. And I remember I got a phone call back from the father, and it was like when I was at the airport. And he was like, hey, I just want you to know we're having a wake at our house, or a celebration of life for Luke the night before. So if you get into town, we'd love for you to come by. And I was like, okay. And so I go not knowing, I can get a slap in the face. I didn't know what I can get because I don't know how much they know, what the whole thing was. I always thought at that point it was my fault. Like I could have got them to come down. And I remember I showed up and it was dark out, and Luke's mom comes running around, and she was there at the golf tournament too. Was she really? Yeah, she was there. She just left, I think, today, but she came around and she gave me the world's biggest hug. Before she said, Richard, and I said, yeah, and she just like held me, and I was like, oh my, I just started bawling. But I knew at that moment everything was going to be all right. And I made a commitment. I said, I'm never going to miss a day. No matter where I'm at in the world, I'm going to fly to Luke's grave on the day he died and visit with his family. And so that was in December 2008 when I did that. My uncle took this awesome photo of me because I was just sitting with Luke at his grave sitting there Indian style. Then I go up there and I put my hand up on his thing and just praying and thinking about him and crying. And my uncle took this really awesome photo of me there that now that I'm in art school, I'm doing all the basic drawing and writing classes. And it was time to be like, oh, I want to actually do something with Luke or for Luke. So this will be for me. Like for me, I'm going to take this photo that I have and I'm going to do a big chalk pastel drawing of him because I love this image. So I start doing everything the way it's supposed to be. The skin tones. I had my cami shorts. I took my digis and like turned them into shorts.
Really?
So like little cargo shorts.
That's the most classic veteran thing ever. That's like what you see guys doing yard work with their camis on.
You'll see, I'll show you the photo. It's legitimately those cut in half. So cargo shorts and my black like Marine Corps shirt, which I cut off too, sleeveless.
Of course.
And I'm sitting there. And so I'm coloring in like the skin tones, the cami shorts, the black shirt, the headstone. I don't put his name on there. I put John 15:13 on there like this. And I put that on the headstone and I'm coloring it in. The only thing I haven't colored in at this point was the background, which is grass in the photo. And my teacher comes around behind me and he sees my drawing. He's like, Richard, I know you're going to do the grass green, because it's in the photo, but I really want to encourage you to do a color that grass would never be. Like, just something different. I was like, why? That's stupid. Why? Like, you see the direction I'm going with it.
Yeah, you see where we're headed.
Yeah,
with
it's
this,
like,
man.
it's pretty obvious. He's like, no, because in the art world, he's like, people only get a few moments to spend with a piece. And if you just put this up as is with a green background, people are going to look at it and be like, oh, knife draftsmanship. But they won't know that you are actually the person in there, that you as the artist were like affected by this scenario, that he's your friend, all this stuff. And I thought it sounded stupid at first, but as a good Marine who listens to orders, I just said, screw it. I did everything red. I legit, at the end of it, I thought I ruined it. I was like, this is stupid. And then I was like, why do you use red? I was like, probably because I made, blood makes the grass grow.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea why. And it was critique time. And I didn't know, I was so art dumb, I didn't know what a critique was. And that's where they talk about your art and they're critiquing it. So I put my art piece up. All the other students put their pieces up, and it gets to my turn. And the teacher's like, Richard, would you like to speak about your piece? I was like, no, sir, I will not.
No, sir.
I didn't say it like that, but
no, sir.
In my head, I was like, I will not. You can go away. That's why I'm in your class, to not talk.
Yeah.
And so when I did say no, though, like I don't want to say anything. And then the kids that I've never told my story before, these 18, 19-year-old kids, one by one, they're like, hey, I think you put red in there because you're angry your friend died. I think you put red in there because you loved your friend. And one of them said, I think you put red in there because you watched him die and you saw his blood. And I was like, for a split second, I felt like I connected with them. I thought it was another battle buddy. Like, I was like, they understood me. I said everything without saying a word. And I was just like, there's something inside me that changed that day. And I was like, there's something to this. If I did that with one color and I made them understand Luke in my story with Luke, what can I do with all the colors? What can I do with symbolism and all this other stuff? And so I just went down this rabbit hole of like, what was that? Art and music. It was art, storytelling through symbolism and all this stuff. Everything has meaning. They have this unlocked code that tells them what red means for them. What is that? So I just started doing a lot more art about my injuries that I never thought I'd be happy to do. I was like, oh, what else? Oh, I have back issues. Let's do art piece about that. Oh, I have a brain injury. Let's do art about that, which is weird because we don't usually get excited about our disabilities. But I started thinking, how can I tell them new things about me in different ways through art?
Yeah. Without having to like talk about it.
And so then we have this person from the school called the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And George O'Keeffe went there. Hugh Hefner went there. No, but a few really, really elite artists went to the school. They said it's like the Harvard of art schools. It's one of the top art schools in the country. And it's just up in Chicago, like 3 hours away. Wow. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm going to apply for this school because I like art now. Yeah. And my teacher, the same one who taught me that skill set, was like, maybe not. He's like, you either have so much money you can get into school, or you've been studying art your whole life. Like, those are 2 ways to get into the school. And I was like, hold my beer. No, I was just like, you know what? I've been so optimistic about everything. I said, that's the only school I'm going to apply for. So there's a person that came down and told us about the school and everything. They told us that they had these days where you can go up and show them your artwork. And so I go up there, show them my artwork. They give me a pass to come back and actually try to apply, because you have to go through one phase of, are you good enough to get to this phase and then further. Yeah. So I go up there and I'm in the admin office pitching myself. Most people are trying to bring in like 30 pieces of art, all conceptual, all modern, all these like crazy things. I bring up 8 still lives, which is like when I color a pear, I'm like drawing a pear, because I'm so new to art. I only have 12 pieces of art, and most of it is still lives, like where I'm copying this skeleton on the wall. I only had 2 pieces that you would consider conceptual or modern, which was the piece I just described with the red in the background, and this one like Harley turning into an eagle painting that I did. And so it's like the movie, what was it, where Jennifer Aniston has all those pieces of flair, and they're like, I thought this was the bare minimum.
That was Clerks, wasn't it?
Was
No, not Clerks. Sorry, Waiting.
Yeah, Waiting. Well, he's like, do you see Brian over there with 80 pieces of flair?
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
He's like, but 14 is good, right? He's like, that's the bare minimum. I had the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I had less than the bare minimum. Everyone else had all the flair.
Yeah.
And so they at first were like, I don't know. You know, our school is really about the next big artist, the next big thing. They started going down this whole rabbit hole of why I wouldn't be there, because most of my stuff is just drawing what I see, no concept.
I might have made, you know what? I might have made a mistake. It might be that
Office
movie
Space.
Office Space.
It is Office Space.
I think it is
Before you
Office
said
Space,
it.
because I was like, wait a second. Wait,
It
she
is.
wasn't in Waiting. Office Space for
Space.
sure. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, sorry. My brain's like
It happens.
jumbles stuff up, but yeah.
And so I'm sitting there trying to think, like, how do I get out of this? How do I get them to get me in there? And I said, you know what? I understand. I was limited by a teacher who was teaching me the first skill set. I just discovered art.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm going to make at your school. I'm going to show you what it's like to be blown up without being blown up. I'm going to create art that does that. I'm going to show you what the loss of innocence of war looks like. Like, I think I could do that through art. So she brought someone else in to like hear my same pitch. And he was like, you know what, let's give him a chance. And I think it's partially because I was a veteran too. There's only like 3 veterans in the entire school.
Wow.
But they let me in. I ended up going to one of the best art schools in the country and really discovering what art and education could do, because I went on this whole path of finding myself through art. And so on the same parallel, I was still trying to tell Luke's story, like through I used to do creative writing. My buddy Brett he was in a band, come to Nashville, write songs. He taught me my first chords on guitar, because I thought, what if I had a song I can give to you and walk away? So now I don't cry. You know, Luke lived. Super win-win for both of us, right? So I went down this path of doing parodies, like rewriting songs as parodies and teaching myself songwriting. And Brett would be coming to Nashville. So I was like, oh, I need to make a trip to Nashville.
And who was Brett again?
Brett Gillen. He's now my program director, but he was the lead singer of a band, one of my first friends at this bar I worked at when I came home from war. And he's the one that taught me songwriting was a job, pretty much, because he was doing it for his band full time.
Okay.
And so he gave me this insight to songwriting. Secretly, he didn't know I was trying to translate my story. He didn't know how much I was hurting on the inside. And so I just kept asking him, oh, songwriting, what's that like? Like, oh, you do that with other people? You do this? So now I'm in Chicago going to school, and there's a writer's round at this bar in Chicago that I worked at called Joe's Bar. And it was like 4 huge, massive hit writers. And I went up to the first one after the session, after it was over, and I was like, hey, have you ever written with a veteran or for a veteran? The first one's like, no. I went to the next person. They said no. I went to the third person. His name's Mark Irwin. He wrote Alan Jackson's like first #1 hit and a bunch since then for Taylor Swift, Tim McGraw, all these people. And I was like,
He wrote songs for them?
Yeah. So #1 songs like Highway Don't Care for Tim McGraw, Taylor Swift.
Wow.
He wrote, I think, Redneck Crazy, My Like Tyler Farr. It was either Sangria or Neon Lights for Blake Shelton. So he has multiple #1s. And so I went up to him. I said, hey, after I asked him that question, he's like, oh, yeah, actually, I wrote a song with Billy Ray Cyrus about this Army staff sergeant coming home from war. I was like, hey, I have so much going on inside of me. I'm trying to write a song about my buddy who died, but I can't put him on the pedestal he needs to be. If I come to you in Nashville, will you help me tell that story? He's like, yeah, come on down. And so a month later, I'm driving down to Nashville, and I sit in a room with Mark Irwin, and I tell him my story. In an hour and a half, we have a song. And I'm sitting here like, I tried for a year to write a song, and it wasn't working. And in an hour and a half, we wrote a song.
What year was this when you came down?
This had to be 2010, 2011, I think.
Okay.
And so I was just blown away that they could do what they did. And so I want to bring every veteran I know to Nashville to tell their story. So as I'm thinking about this, my buddy Jesse, who's missing his leg from an IED blast and burns over 60% of his body, salty earth human, doesn't talk about a story, but I've known him since childhood. He also went in the Marine Corps. He was with Charlie Company. He was a reserve unit. They got hit really bad. And so
Charlie Company with the reserve
it was like
unit.
Pure Illinois Charlie Company.
Did he get hit when he was in an AAV?
Possibly. Actually, yeah, I think it was because Ty Ziegel was there, and he's since passed away. He was the most, I don't know how you say it, disfigured Marine ever from that, because he like everything was gone pretty much. It was a bad blast that he was in, and then Jesse got kind of like the second worst, but it was mainly burns and missing his leg.
Yeah,
but he's still a guy today who climbs telephone poles. He legitimately, like, with his prosthetic.
He's a lineman?
Yeah, he does all this stuff. He works on the roads and does all this crazy stuff, like, with his prosthetic. That's salt of the earth, devout Christian man, family man, doesn't talk, doesn't want to burden other people with his stories kind of thing.
Jeez.
And so I knew that if I can get Jesse to talk, I can get anybody to talk. Because I'm sitting here thinking, I just did 4 years of art and now songwriting, and I'm back to almost normal. That 9 on that.
Feeling a lot better.
That 9 on that scale, 0 was taking my life. I was at a 9. I was at probably an 85 after going to school, learning how to process my trauma, how to tell my own story, how to write music. I was at an 85. So going from like one-on-one speeches and not being able to do job interviews to now being able to do job interviews and talking to people. Still wasn't the best, but I was better. And so I thought, could I really help a veteran in like a 1-session thing though? Because I've been doing this for 4 years. Maybe that's why I'm better. Can I do this in like a 3-hour writing session? And will a veteran want to? So I meet this other songwriter while I'm down here named Jeff Copeland and Rob Blackledge and Noel Billings, who are in this band called Blackjack Billy. And they have some number ones as writers as well. And I showed him a photo of Jesse that I took a photo of him on his Harley one time. I was like, hey, this is a friend of mine. If I brought him to Nashville, will you help tell the story? They're like, yeah, man, we'll do that. So I go with Jesse. I'm like, hey, I know you don't like talking about what happened, but if I brought you to Nashville, would you sit with me in a writer's room and like share your story so we could turn it into a song? And he's like, yeah, man, I love music. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, damn.
Not expected it. No, 100% was not expected. I thought I was going to have to fight him for it.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And
that's a very unique experience. Proposal.
That was the first time I realized what I was talking about earlier. If I can outweigh his anxiety and depression with excitement, I can get him to do anything. He didn't really hear anything besides, I'm going to take you to Nashville and write with the number one writer. So then I'm like, okay, let's talk about what you're going through, what we should talk about in the song, because I want you to write about something you don't talk about.
Yeah.
So we sat on his back porch and talked about what he wanted to say, and we finally came up with this idea about how, you feel so comfortable in war that it feels uncomfortable to come home. Because you train your whole life to be in war, and then you go to war, and you come home, and it feels weird.
Yeah.
And that's a perspective people don't really see or understand or even think about. So we have this idea. I raised at this point, I didn't even think about us being a nonprofit yet. I just wanted to help Jesse, but I raised $280 on GoFundMe. I put on Facebook, send my buddy to Nashville with me to tell a story. And I did a little GoFundMe, and I brought Jesse down, and we sat in this room, and I remember Jesse, I was like, and how I do it in the room too is I don't treat it as their story. I treat it as their song. So we already came up with the song idea, which is like how to come home, like how it feels different. So I told the guys, I was like, hey, we have this idea for a song based off of some of the stuff Jesse went through, but he does this. I was like, well, Jesse, why don't you tell him about the song idea? And so Jesse goes into his story because it's the song. And so he's still kind of down and out, just like, it's such a small town I come from. People knew I was injured before I came home. So they try to pump me up, and they'd see me in the market and be like, oh, you're looking so good. Aren't you blessed to be home and glad to be home? So he was telling the story, and Blackjack Billy's like, okay. And they have a guitar, so they're actually playing something here. They say, what about something like, hey, boy, you looking good. I know you're glad you're back. Man, I heard you got hurt real bad. Is it something like that? Jesse's eyes just lit up. Because when you hear that with actual music coming back, and you just said these words, and now they're singing them back to you, he opened up more than I've ever heard him talk before, like word vomiting. And I heard stuff he's never even told me before, and we're like really close. And it was the coolest thing ever, because after 3 hours, he was texting the song to his wife, to his sister, to his mom. He was telling his entire story to his family he's never talked to before about that story.
Wow.
And his mom was like, we got our son back. And his sister's like, I finally understand my brother-in-law. And it was one of the most important things I've ever done, because I realized right then, a 3-hour session could absolutely save someone's life.
Yeah.
So then probably a year down the road when I decided I was going to try to make that leap. I still didn't know what it was like, though. It may not even been a year. It's probably like 6 months. Same random. There's so many moments in my life that are just like, whoa.
Like serendipitous or something?
So God. I mean, for me, it's a God thing. It's like everything was planned, and it's so in your face that it's hard to deny sometimes when you hear these. But I'm now in Chicago. I just wrote with Jesse, and I'm on cloud 9. Like, this is going to work, but I don't know what to do. I'm just Marine, just, here.
Trying to figure it out.
And so at the time, I'm living with 2 different roommates in Chicago off the Brown Line by Wrigley Field a little bit, but just down the road. So I was at Addison Brown Line. There's Addison Red Line, so I had to like walk a mile to home if the Brown Line was shut down. So lived over there. One of my roommates was a 4'11" girl named Cammie, I knew her from Bloomington, Illinois. She just needed a room, and I had an extra room, and so she started renting up there.
Cammie,
yeah. I was at the time dating a girl who was going to school in Peoria, because I met her when I was in Peoria when I was going to school in Bloomington. I started dating this girl, and then I went to Chicago for school. And so I was Skyping with her at the time when Skype was a thing.
Yeah, before people would just FaceTime.
And Cammie came in the room, and she's like, hey, my dad's coming up. He's on drill. He's going to take me to dinner for my birthday. Do you want to come? And for me, being a good boyfriend and being like, I don't want my girlfriend to be jealous because another girl's asked me to dinner or whatever. And I was like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm chatting with Tori. And Tori she was like, oh, no, you can go. I was like, oh, cool. And so I shut my laptop, and I go to the steakhouse. It was at Alexander Steakhouse on like North and Clybourne up there. And like me and Cammie walk in, and her dad is in his camis. He's in full garb because he was doing a drill. He was like a major in the Army Guard, but it's like a nursing corps. I forget how it was, but I just knew he was up there for a reason, and he was in his camouflage. And this is like November 10th, Marine Corps birthday, hoorah. November 10th of 2011, and we're in the steakhouse. And we're eating, and it's like me on this side and then Cammie and her dad on this side. And these 2 ladies walk by, and they stop, and they're just like, thank you so much for your service to him. And he's like, oh, don't thank me, thank Richard. And I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm just obviously in civilians. I just put my head down.
You're like, don't say that.
And he's like, he's been through so much more than me. I'm just, I just do my thing. But and then they turn to me, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for your sacrifice and your service. And then they leave. And so we order some dessert, and then one of them comes back. There's 2 gone. 1 comes back. She's like, are you 3 by chance going to the Bears game tomorrow? It's salute to your troops, because on Veterans Day.
Okay.
Salute to your troops game. And we're like, no. She's like, oh, okay. I was just making sure. I have 3 clubhouse tickets. I want to give them to you guys to go to watch the game, because I feel like Veterans Day, you guys should be there, not me. I'll tell my friends. If you want to come, I'll tell my friends we're not going. I want to give them to you.
No kidding.
And so Cammie kind of cries, and she's like, yes. And she accepts. And so Linda gives me her like name and address. And the next day I pull up to her address, and it's super cold. I'm wearing my big Carhartt jacket, and I was sitting down the whole time. And I go to her place at the Carlisle, right downtown Chicago, like Gold Coast, and there's doormen, and they have to let me in. They're like, oh yeah, go up to this unit. And I go up there. I still remember knocking on the door. She opened the door and almost shut it, because she noticed how huge I was, and then with my big jacket and cold, and she realized it was me, and she's like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I'm here for the tickets and all this stuff. And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, here's a parking pass, here's the tickets. And I look at the tickets, and it's Chicago Bears, my team, versus the Houston Texans, which is Luke's team. And for one, I'm already just like, oh my gosh. And no. I go to the game, we lose, Houston wins, rains the whole time. I come back. I actually write a song about this kind of experience. I'm just like the kindness of a stranger. And then I email her, and I say, you know what that means to me? That was my first ever NFL game. And I told her about Luke. I was like, my buddy was killed. So she just wanted to, after that, and her late husband died a few years before that, maybe 10 years before that. So she was just like a widower. So every month we just go have lunch somewhere. She just wanted to keep up with my life now that we had this emotional connection from her seeing that.
Yeah.
And so after I wrote with Jesse, and I came back, and it was that month that we came and we were sitting there eating food, and I told her, I was like, man, I just changed Jesse's life through a songwriting experience. I know I could do more of this if we were like a nonprofit or something. I just don't know how to do it. She's like, well, let's do it. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I sit on the board of multiple nonprofits. I give to nonprofits. She's like, I'll help you pull together a board. Let's just do it. I was like, okay. I had no idea. And so she pulled like 4 people. I pulled some random people, like Jesse's wife I put on the board, and another Marine buddy I put on board. And she brought like the head of the American Dental Association for 26 years and the head of AP Music out in LA. And so I was like, this is crazy.
Where did she get those contacts from?
Just from being in, like, her late husband built the Butler Company, which was a toothbrush company, sold the gum toothbrushes. And she was a philanthropist in the dental world. So she was giving money to USC, Chapel Hill, or actually her husband's bust is at Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill. Where did you go? You go to school?
We went to UNC.
UNC.
Yeah, me and Cliff both.
Yeah. So there's a bust of her husband there. Because they gave to that school for the dental school.
Oh, so yeah, the dental school is really big there.
Yeah, and so, side note, when Pokemon came out in 2016, I guess there was like Pikachus that would be there, and they had to like shoo people off the campus because it was at his bus that they were at. They made like a little thing. That's the only reason Linda knew that Pokemon existed, because they were getting complaints that a bunch of kids were going into that building to catch Pikachu.
Pokemon Go is the weirdest phenomenon, bro. Like, they talked about how they like mapped out the entire planet from all the screenshots from all the like pictures.
Well, I've helped him now. My son, when he was like 3, I was like, how do we get outside more? And I was like, let's download this. I remember this was like a craze. And then we'd go around and he loved it. Like, just it'd make him go out the side of the house to now I get it, but back then I didn't understand it at all. Yeah. It is still like a crazy thing because so they have access to so much data.
Oh yeah. But anyway, so you got connected with tons of people.
So she instantly. But the great thing that I still, when I was in this, like the very first year, we only raised $18,000 and served 9 veterans. And this is like one at a time. I only knew 3 songwriters in Nashville at this point. Mark Irwin, 4 now. Mark Irwin, who wrote with me, and then these other 3 who wrote with me. So I knew I needed at least 2 pro writers per veteran I was bringing to town. So I was like, okay, I'm going to find another veteran who needs this. And I asked Jesse who needs this, and he told me about his cousin who served in the Marine Corps, and I met him, and I said, hey, I'm going to bring you down to Nashville, and we're going to write with these guys, like this other guy I just met through Mark Irwin connected me.
Now, why 2? Why 2 songwriters?
Because I felt like even if you're a really good songwriter, you don't want my life in your hands by yourself. And in Nashville, co-writing is a big thing. I started another company called We Should Write Sometime that's like Bumble or Tinder for songwriters to connect songwriters around the globe, because you need to write with multiple people. And there's a whole thing. I'll go down that rabbit hole if you want to talk about that in a little bit. But usually you're always writing with 3 or 4 people anyways. So it's the most comfortable. It's the easiest to get stuff out. But if you had a veteran and another veteran in there and you're trying to tell their whole story, it's really hard, because especially if you're quiet for a little bit thinking and they're talking. So you always want to have people to bounce things off of. And so, but I needed a minimum of 2 writers per veteran I brought to town. So I would come down with the veteran, and we'd stay for the very first veteran, Jesse, we stayed in the same hotel room. Obviously, when I didn't know them, we both got hotel rooms, but separately. But I would drive them down from, like, if they're in Illinois, I just drive them down, because the thing I learned was through my own experience was there's so many friction points to veterans receiving help. A lot of it is like therapy. I'm not broken. I don't need therapy. It's, I just don't have the money. I would go on this trip, but I don't have the money. And then the excitement level, because they might have depression, anxiety. They have to do one-on-one speech with their speech teacher, so they're not going to go somewhere. Yeah. So I said, if I could do this writing session in Nashville with #1 writers, that's the excitement. If I could pay for their flight, food, housing, or their gas down here, and that's going to get that out of the way. But the last thing that they needed was a battle buddy. Like, when I needed the most, when I'd go to the cornfield and cry, I'd call my buddy Jeremy, and luckily he'd answer. And he'd just be like, what's wrong? And I'd be like, I don't know. I just feel weird. And so I said, I'm going to be everyone's battle buddy. So when I called, like, Jeremy Jansen, who was his cousin, I said, hey, I was in the Marine Corps too, blown up 4 times. My friend was killed. What'd you go through? And he'd tell me about being in the blast with Jesse and the other guys. And he'd tell me the story about how he felt like when he was coming home, he was left behind, all this stuff. I said, well, cool. I'm going to bring you to Nashville. I'm going to be with you the whole time. I'm going to be in the session with you. I'm going to do this. So it made them feel comfortable that they had a battle buddy. So one at a time, I'd bring these veterans down. While we were here, we'd go out and listen to more songwriters sing. And so I'd be with Jeremy. I'd see these songwriters like Brian Davis would play One Hell of an Amen that he wrote for Brantley Gilbert. He'd get off stage. I'd run up to him and be like, hey, I bring veterans to town. Would you ever write with one if I did? And he's like, yeah. And he'd give me his number. And then I'd take his number. I'd set up a date. Once he gave me a date, I'd find another veteran. And so that's how I built CreatiVets to what you saw even on Monday.
That's so crazy how you started with 1. Yeah. And now look how far you've come.
It was insane.
It is absolutely exploded.
And so for the first 4 years, it was so hard because I'm not even 100% disability, and I was living off 60% disability, like paycheck to paycheck in extreme debt, coming down here, not making a salary. For the first 4 years of CreatiVets, never made a salary because I didn't know that's what you're supposed to do as you grow and like build teams. It was just pretty much me doing it, living in this $500 month-to-month apartment, just barely surviving. But my previous relationship ended because I wasn't making money, and she was like, "It's any woman wants. They want a provider at one point." But I knew what it was like to save someone's life at that point. So there's nothing stopping me from writing and telling veteran stories through music. And so I had to move to Nashville and just be here full time. And I fully moved down here. CreatiVets started in 2013. I fully moved here in 2015. And that's when we started scaling. But
it's about 11 years ago.
Yeah. But at that point, I still wasn't making anything from CreatiVets. And I was like struggling so bad. And I kept being like, why aren't the board giving me more money to service veterans? Because they were teaching me a really good lesson, because sometimes when you have too much money, you fail quicker. You might have a really good 2 years, but when you realize that money runs out, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to piece the program together so quickly. For example, when I started the app for songwriters, when I first came up with this idea and I pitched my buddy who's now the CEO of it, I wanted to have, like, it's like Bumble or Tinder. So in songwriting in Nashville, if you just moved here and you want to find a songwriter, you legitimately go to this app and you swipe left and right. You click on their profile. You see their music. You'd hear their music. You'd see if they play guitar, if they top line, if they do all this stuff. So in my head, I was like, oh, you can do that. Then I was like, oh, also, you should be able to write in the app, and you should have this scrolling thing. If you're singing, I just had 1,000 ideas for it. 6 months went by while we're trying to find a person to build this app for us. And we had a few like snafus, but by the time we got ready for it, I was like, wait, we went through this class where like, you don't need all that stuff. Let the user dictate. All you need is the MVP, like the, what is it called? The minimal valuable product, whatever they call it. Minimal valuable product, where I was like, oh yeah, you just have to swipe on them and text them. That's pretty much all you need to actually do a writing session. So I was thinking about that same way with veterans. I said, if I thought I knew everything that the veteran needed, I would probably build the wrong program. So what do I need first? They just need a song. So the very first veterans that came down, like Jesse, when we wrote his song, it was only a guitar vocal of a song that sounded, the songwriter would sing it into his iPhone, and then I'd send it to them. So years down the road, when we finally got money, I would record their songs. Like I'd have someone, $600 would record their whole song so it sounded more like a radio quality song, give it to them. Because they all were like, can I have my song back? I was like, oh, you have that crappy version.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, no matter what, it was the process of writing the song. Then a few years later, we started having full band productions where we can actually invite veterans to hear their song be recorded. But every time I added something, I'd backfill all the veterans. So like the veteran who went day one, Jesse, he got his song finally recorded. He could come back as a mentor. So I felt bad they didn't get the same experience. But I built the program up to now 10 veterans come at once for one of our cohorts. And it's 4 days rather than just 3 days. So 5 veterans
at once, and each of them has 2 writers.
So 5 of them are telling their story. So like if you, Cliff, Scooter Brown, even though he's in music, like these other guys, if 5 of you applied for our programs and you qualified, you're combat disabled veterans, or just we say combat loosely. It's more wounded veteran, because we've had people who I had a cook who was serving overseas with the Ranger unit, and he was the only cook on the base. And one day someone didn't show up, and he's like, where's Jimmy or whatever? And he's like, oh, he died on patrol. And he's like, I cooked him his last meal. Was it good enough? So even though he didn't go to combat, he struggled severely, and then 5 more people died. So he cooked people their last meal. And so that's what I mean by wounded veteran. It doesn't have to be like straight in combat. It could be a wounded veteran from wars. Yeah. So 5 of y'all would be paired with mentors like me. So it used to be me. First 80 veterans, it was me. I'd call them. I'd book their flights. I'd fly them out here. While they were here, I'd find more songwriters to put in rooms with them. The next one would fly in. I would be keeping up with all these veterans behind, all these veterans in front of us, and the veterans that are going through the program. It was insane.
That's a lot to manage.
Sometimes like it was hard.
Yeah, that's
and
a lot.
I'm taking in every one of their stories. When I tell them what I did, they say, I shot a kid in Iraq, and I can't look at my kids the same, and I can't tell my wife that. Like, I'm hearing these stories constantly, and I'm reliving my story every time I do it. And I'm like helping them process their trauma as I'm processing mine. And it was a lot to deal with. So I knew we had to expand, and I knew that we had enough veterans now that we could provide mentors, Richards, for everyone else. So now if like a Vietnam veteran applies for a program, I have another Vietnam veteran that we fly in. We pay twice as much for one veteran, because we want them to be comfortable. So if a Vietnam veteran applies from Montana, I'll fly in a Vietnam veteran from Hawaii if I have to be their mentor. They're the ones that call them before they ever get out here, say, hey, I was in Da Nang, I did this thing. What'd you go through? They tell them, they said, well, when you get to Nashville, I'll be there with you. So when I say we bring in 10 veterans, it's 5 being serviced through the program and 5 who've been through the program, and they're helping mentor these other veterans.
Oh,
so they're coming in with them. They're all writing separate songs
Yeah.
as individuals. So Monday, say Sunday night, they all get in. They finally meet their mentor in person. If they have a bunch of calls with them, they're talking about their song idea. We do a writer's round that night, tell them like how do you tell stories through music. They tell the story behind the song, sing the song. The next morning now, we go backstage at the Grand Ole Opry where nobody else gets to write, and we write their song in the Opry. Even the writers who play the Opry or the artists don't write back there. So we write backstage at the Grand, and that's another excitement level. Like getting Vietnam veterans out here is easier now because we have the Opry. We've had veterans who hadn't helped in 40 years who come through our program.
When did you start getting to write at the Grand Ole Opry? Like, how did you develop that relationship?
This is another one. In Chicago, one of the bartenders was dating this guy who was at Warner Music. And when I moved down here, she's like, you need to meet my husband. He's at Warner. He then got to the Opry, and he's like, hey, he was on my board, and he connected me with the Opry Dan is what they call him. And I went and pitched him. I said, hey, I want veterans to be able to access backstage, to be able to write their story, because they're going to be so excited they get to do that they're going to come to my program. And he's like, okay, sure, whatever you want. I was like, that was too easy.
You didn't have to persuade him or anything.
But yeah, so in 2018, we started writing backstage at the Opry, and we still do to this day. Where veterans come in, we write
8 years ago.
Yeah, we write backstage at the Opry. So they all go into 5 different dressing rooms. So 2 veterans, 1 being served, and then the mentor, and then 2 pro writers. And not just pro writers. We've had Justin Moore, Granger Smith, Randy Rogers, Craig Campbell, Craig Morgan, all sit in these rooms of veterans, not asking for any money, just doing it for the love of helping this veteran shape their story.
Yeah.
They write their song. That night, we go out and listen to music again because they hear music differently now, because they were just in this whole process of how it gets made, like watching it be created. The next day, we go into the recording studio. This is one of the most magical parts because each veteran gets to hear the other veteran's story. And so as mentors, if it's a female veteran, we actually pair them with a female veteran. If it's a Vietnam veteran, we pair them with a Vietnam veteran. All the way down to, or if you're shot, we try to pair you with someone who's shot. Like if we can, we try to put the perfect mentor with you to get you to open up. But the cool thing is that you'll have a Vietnam veteran hearing his song come to life, and that's the first time that this post 9/11 veteran is hearing it.
Yeah.
And they're like, this sounds like me too. And then all of a sudden there's a female veteran, maybe she was in the Lioness program. Now they hear her song and they're like, this actually sounds like me too. So you're actually bridging this whole gap between all of them as well. And they'd be like, we all went through different scenarios, but it was the feelings were the same. Yeah. So they're hearing each other's songs come to life, and it brings this like cohort together. Then we release the music, and now we have civilians and military helping bridge that gap between military and civilian divide. And we're getting letters from wives who are like, you helped my marriage because my husband wouldn't open up about his experience until he heard your song. And he related so much to that person. He started telling me how similar his life was by telling me stories he never told me before. She's like, you helped save our marriage. Keep writing songs. So it's been incredible to see the power of music in Nashville. But in 2015, we started our art program, which is even more powerful, I feel like. It's not to the naked eye because songwriting's sexy. Art's not as sexy. But in 2015, I knew I wanted an art program because I knew art would be so successful. How do I get these big burly men and women who fight in wars go do art? Like, how do I get them in art school?
Yeah.
And so I went back to SCSC, my alma mater, the School of Art Institute of Chicago, and I said, hey, my dream would be that you allow veterans in the school with no art background at all, like so that they come through your process or trauma like I did. And they said, cool, you could teach it. And I was like, oh, what? I could teach? Like, I went from not doing anything with art to now teaching at one of the best art schools in the country. I was like, sweet, I'll do that. I was expecting to be a TA or something, but I'll teach it. So 2015, I had 6 veterans, 1 Native American Marine from the Blackfeet tribes of Montana, who's a friend that I served with in 2-7. This young Marine named Gino, a Vietnam veteran from California. This female veteran named Bree, who's hilarious. We still work with her today. That was living in like Hendersonville and Nashville.
Her name's Bree?
Bree, yeah. She's hilarious. This is her doing this. Her email is Fatty Fuller. Her last name's Fuller, Bree Fuller. That's her kind of sense of humor. She's the best person ever.
She made an email that says Fatty Fuller.
She's on the bigger side, not like crazy, but she legitimately like she embraced. She was just like, yeah, Fatty Fuller.
Me. Yeah.
She's like, this is me, and she is the best. And she went to that program not being the best and like isolated, but it was the craziest thing ever because I had like the smaller Hispanic Gino, this Native American, this old Vietnam veteran from like very hippie veteran to this female veteran. And I'm just like, what a collective group of people who never thought art would be an option. And now we're paying for their tuition, their housing, their food. They're living in the dorms, and they're going to school like normal kids would. And the cool thing is they've all been through these crazy experiences. So they're doing 3 weeks courses, 9 to 4 at this school, going to school like normal people. That's another thing that sets us apart. I don't want a veteran to feel like they're in an inpatient program. So when they're there, we treat them like students. Because I think the problem that some nonprofits have is that if you go to Colorado and do some like chamber, some sort of thing that just makes you feel really good, and you're like, dude, that took away my PTSD.
Yeah.
2 years down the road, if you have like a flare up or it starts slowly creeping up, you're going to say, I need that to get better. And what if they don't allow you to come back? That's an issue. When I build my programs, I build them so that 2 years down the road, if you're like, I'm having a relapse, you know you can go to any school around you and do the same thing. So I set it up that way. So you get a syllabus, even though there's like, we're doing some things that are more therapeutic in nature and we're very intentional. You have to tell your story that you can't talk about during it, but it's still class. You go there. If you don't show up 3 times, you're out of the class just like you would be out of normal school. Okay. They get a syllabus. They're in school with other kids, civilians that are in other classes, but they get to interact, go to lunch with them and all that stuff. So it's a full-on college experience for 3 weeks, but they have to tell their story. And at the end of it, we have a whole gallery show of what their work is. And that's one of the most powerful things ever because the students, the teachers, and the veterans are out there telling the story behind their art piece, which is how we get them to talk and be more successful is their stories.
Which is what got you started.
Yeah, because
in the
art
first place.
You could hide everything in art. I've had even 2 veterans tell me like war crime stuff that they did that they're not proud of, but that they did. They told me, and then I showed them what that would look like as an art piece, how they could hide it in their art so they could finally get it out of them. So they put it in their art piece, but you would never know. You'd walk by and be like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cute. That's cool. Like, what does this mean? And the beauty behind art is they could tell you whatever story they want, and it still will make sense when they tell it because they understand art now and how to talk about it. And it baby steps them into, I've seen veterans at the start of the gallery show tell you one thing, but at the end of the show, they tell you the real story because they get so used to saying it now. It's a beautiful thing. It has changed so many lives. So that was our songwriting program and then our art program. And then fast forward to maybe 2018, I got into the George Bush Leadership Program, which was a new thing for him. It was like veterans who were, it was supposed to be leaders in the veteran space that are helping veterans. So they bring a bunch of us leaders together. And it was one of the most eye-opening things ever in the nonprofit space because I was here doing this mainly by myself, grinding it out, not knowing that there's this whole ecosystem. I never knew there was 40,000 veteran service organizations. I was just in my own bubble of like, is there like 3 nonprofits out there? I didn't know. I was just grinding it out to save veterans' lives every day, and my waiting list was getting longer, so I had no time for that. But I got to the Bush Institute and found out real quick. I met like the head of Mission Continues, the third in command at Wind Word Project, the people from Boeing who fund veteran programs. It was the gamut from companies, people, founders. It was so eye-opening to see what the veteran nonprofit landscape actually looked like.
Because there's a whole bunch of them there at the same time.
So much. Well, and I could learn from them. If I had a board member tell me one thing, I'm just like their board member. I went from poor Marine to bouncer at a bar to art student to executive director. What do I know? Yeah. I didn't know. And so what if I had a board member tell me something, I just had to take them at their word. But now I'm in this class of founders, board members, and nonprofits where I'm like, hey, my treasurer said I need to do this, which I think is holding me back. What do you say? And they'd be like, oh, you can talk to my accounting department. I talk to them. Then I'd go to the board member and be like, hey, this isn't how it's done in the veteran space, like even in the nonprofit space. So it kind of gave me leverage a little bit to be like, oh, I'm learning from them and leveraging us. And from that moment on, we scaled rapidly. I was able to bring on a team and start doing stuff the right way. Because I was doing the old school way where we talked about that. It was like, you just assume you're not supposed to take a salary. I didn't think I was supposed to take a salary. I was going broke. I was putting myself into debt. Every girl I dated was like, it was ruining it because I didn't make money. And I was just like, this is my sacrifice. This is what I need to do. Then when I talked to these funders didn't want to give money to volunteers. Could you imagine if you had the option of giving someone who ran a podcast studio $75,000 and you're going to make sure that you have this whole thing lined up for an entire year and you know that they're taking money as a salary? Or would you give it to a volunteer who kind of runs a boutique and assume that they're going to be there the entire year for you? You're probably going to think the person who takes a salary is going to be there for you if you give them the money. And the volunteer might have some reasons why he didn't show up. Well, I just volunteer. I don't take any money. Like I use it to rent the studio. I don't take any money. So you can't blame me. Like that's the mindset that donors have on the highest level. So when I met with Wounded Warrior Products team, they're like, yeah, you don't make enough for us to actually give you a grant, which sounds counterintuitive. But when I realized that it's because they don't know me. They did now. They're like, actually, now that we know you, we're going to give you money because we think your programs are awesome. They're successful. And you work like you're working. I was working like 80 to 100 hours a week. But on paper, I wasn't. On paper, you see it and you're like, I'm not giving my money to this volunteer. Like he's going to make excuses why he's not getting stuff done. So there's a huge disconnect in that. But the moment I started paying myself a salary and I started paying the two guys that were with me a salary, all of a sudden we went from helping like 18 veterans to helping 100 veterans. I was like, oh, that was weird. And then we started bringing in someone else. And now we're at like 1,200 veterans a year now with a team of like 10 people doing programs in 19 cities, 14 states, Puerto Rico. And that wouldn't be the case if we were an all volunteer organization, because you can't have everyone sacrifice their own lives for everyone else, because we would stay at the 30 veterans served. If everyone was sacrificing their lives, they'd have to get second and third jobs and not be able to actually support veterans. And so there's kind of like this misconception in the nonprofit space when they start seeing people make money and they're like, you can't do that. You're not a good person if you do that. It's like, no, legitimately, I need to do this because if I want to have a wife and a kid one day and also just sustain, I need to have a job. And this is my job. And plus, I was the program. I was the one that found the veteran, booked the veteran, brought them here, wrote with them. And I wasn't getting paid for any of that. So when you think about when salaries come, I was still doing the same thing. So you're actually just paying for me as the program. Like I was the program that built it. And so that's another way to look at it. But it's crazy how much we scaled and how many more lives we saved because we can pay people now.
Yeah, but you also couldn't, there's no way that you could continue scaling if you were the one doing it in person the entire time. Because like you can only, spread yourself so thin, right? And so it ends up getting to a place where you have to delegate other people or task other people to do it or pay other people to do it. So that way you can help more people and scale. Because ultimately that's the reason you started, was to help people.
Yep.
And like you're going to be able to help a net more amount of people if you have more people on your team.
Yeah. And when people are even getting out of college and even the Marine Corps, I have some high level people who get out. And imagine if they all went to the nonprofit space, how much better everyone would be. But you'd have to pay them even close to comparable to the other places that are trying to acquire them, because they can't make a life-changing decision being like, oh, yeah, I just got out of Princeton. Should I go work for this nonprofit for $30,000 a year or take this $200,000 job? But if you did give them $100,000 to come to the nonprofit because they're still a pretty good person, they just need a base minimum, and they scale your organization to be a $50 million organization that serves 20,000 veterans now, the amount of good you did on investing in them could change the world. There's a TED Talk. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's the other thing that kind of changed my perspective on things. If you look at probably TED Talk nonprofit, I think it was like American Cancer Society, a guy talked about how they took out, I think, $1 million front page ad or like middle page ad, whatever, in the New York Times around an activation for breast cancer or some sort of cancer, which sounds ridiculous. Like, what nonprofit would spend $1 million on an ad like, let's cancel them, right? Well, that's kind of what happened. But what happened from that $1 million investment, I think they raised like $400 million from that $1 million pledge. So the guy's whole TED Talk was about, no, you should invest. He's like, why doesn't a nonprofit spend $250,000 to $1 million on a feature film and make a film, and then it goes out there and it raises $50 million? Because they'll get canceled for spending money on the film, even though it brought in 10x, 20x what they would have, and they could serve more people. People are still angry that they spent the money, not that they received it. So I think he does this whole TED Talk, and I think he talks about that Cancer Society actually failing, even though they raised that much money, all because they spent the money. It's a weird thing to think about. So
Yeah, because that's like with the weird thing. It's like, okay, nonprofits need to spend a certain amount of money advertising, or nobody's going to know that you exist.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, it's like you have a obligation to your donors to make sure that the money that they are giving to you is being spent to help people.
Yep.
But I mean, it's like
that's why it's so weird.
It is a weird gray area.
You have to win it if you do. Like, we don't spend any money on marketing. When we do our events, I've had an event. After our golf tournament 2 years ago, we did a Whiskey Jam takeover, which was free for us.
Yeah.
I had Jelly Roll, Brantley Gilbert, Colby Calais, Gavin DeGraw all perform at it.
All those guys?
They didn't. Yeah, they all did like 2 songs each, and
do they all live here?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's wild.
I know, it's crazy. Everyone lives in Nashville now. They didn't charge me a dime, and they just played it. And then I go to these other nonprofits where they're like, we paid $80,000 to have this country artist come play for you. But I've cultivated these relationships over the years to where almost everything we get is free in kind or like next to nothing.
Yeah.
But it's also an issue of why we haven't grown where we need to be yet too. My biggest issue in the nonprofit space, most nonprofits you meet, they'll have a really robust fundraising marketing team.
Yeah.
Every time I grew, I just hired another program person because I was like, no, veterans need to be served. But I'm at this point where I'm kind of regretting that a little bit, because if I had a really good fundraiser, I would probably be $2 million more and actually be able to serve more veterans.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I just kept saying, no, I need a program person. I need a music person. I need a program associate to help the program people. So there again,
maybe now's the time.
I know it really is. We're in that fluctuation point where I went from this all the way up till now. It was me and a part-time grant writer who built everything, like who raised all the money.
Yeah.
I finally brought her on full time, and we're starting to do more marketing. But still, even then, it makes me sick sometimes if I have to spend money on things.
Did you find that it was difficult for you personally to kind of like release control of certain things and let other people deal with it, or let other people handle it?
Kind of especially the programming. I don't care about the other stuff, because even marketing, admin, I'm like, do it however you do it as long as it's good.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but programs, yes. Even mentors. Like when I hear like a story about a mentor not getting their veteran to open up, I'm like, I could have done it. I could have made them open up, because I could talk, because they didn't live my life to be able to. I'm also a songwriter. I have like 90 placements in film and television. Like, I learned songwriting through CreatiVets, but I also do my own songwriting. Yeah. And so I'm
here in Nashville.
So I did some in LA and other places, but yeah, I'd write songs. And so I have songs all over in like film, television, all this stuff on my own, but I'm a writer. So I'm that perfect mode of, I wasn't an artist or a songwriter. I learned it and it saved my life. I'm also a successful songwriter. So in a room when I'm mentoring you, I could speak veteran and I could speak songwriter. Yeah. And I could do both. Most of these mentors we have come back are just good hangs, and they know how to speak veteran, but they don't know how to speak songwriter, which is an issue sometimes, because if the songwriter goes down this path, they're going to want to put every word you say in the song, because they're like, he's the veteran. And you're just going to say yes to everything they say because they're the songwriter. You're like, you're the songwriter? Yeah, whatever. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you're the veteran? Yeah, whatever you say sounds good. But I'm there to actually push back on what you say and what they say. My whole job in the room is, if you're not writing the song you need, I'm going to push you. If I'm like, no, we don't need to write a love song to your wife. You told me that you watched that kid die, that you need to talk about this. Like, it gets hard in the room, but we make sure they have the song they need, not the song they want. So sometimes I'll hear a song that's kind of, I'm like, what happened? They're like, well, the mentor couldn't get them to open up. And that kills me, because I'm like, what happens if that veteran takes their life down the road? Like, it should have been me in that room. So that's the only time I really feel like I need to, like, I have control issues.
You feel personally responsible.
Yeah, because I feel personally responsible.
Yeah.
And because I've had veterans who said that this was their last option. They didn't want to do art, but it was their last option, and ended up saving their life. And so it's extremely personal to me. But I've never been really big. Like, I'll always be a co-founder. I'll always be willing to give up. There was a 2-year period where I actually demoted myself to program director because I didn't want to do all the other stuff. But then we stalled out for 2 years, and I took the reins over again, and we scaled rapidly. Okay. Because I didn't care about the leadership part of it. I just wanted to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times, like, some of the best leaders don't want to be that leader.
No, and I never did. I didn't even want to help veterans. And then once it saved my life, and I looked back at it, I was like, man, nobody does this. Like, this could save so many lives. I guess I could start it to try to help other people. And then even when we got 2 years in, and I put my buddy Jeremy in charge, because I was like, I don't want to lead. I just want to help. And then I started doing that, and then we kind of started slowing down, and I was like, well, let me try again. And all of a sudden we scale rapidly again. I'm like, okay, I'm decent at this enough because it's my personal story that's driving the funding and the veterans.
As far as like leadership is concerned, it's like a lot of times the best leaders I've met never wanted to be in a position of leadership. They just wanted to do other things, or they just wanted to help people, or
I still don't. I just want to write. I just want to write and help people, I'm the person for it.
Yeah.
Like, ultimate goal for me would be get sustainable, and I just move to the board and help kind of guide from the board lens, and also write and still do some of like the actual programming. But until we're sustainable enough to where I could do that, I can't obviously leave.
You have a lot of different programs other than just songwriting. You've got art.
So the art, the songwriting, we have Scars of Scripts now, which is phenomenal, which Michael Broderick and Grayson Russell and Charles Eston and D.B. Sweeney, all these actors help us with. But we're pairing combat veterans and wounded veterans with Hollywood screenplay writers to tell their story for the first time, their trauma story. And again, they're excited because they're writing with these big writers who've written like movies and shows they've seen.
Yeah.
And they tell their trauma story in like a 5 to 7 minute play like thing where they need only three characters. And so they relive their moment in time through writing, but then we fly them all out here in that Tennessee Performing Arts Center. We actually have these actors act out their story in front of them. So like this last show, Charles Eston played the dead friend of this guy. Like Carl David wrote this beautiful play about what happened to his friend dying in this helicopter crash in like Bosnia or somewhere crazy. And Charles Eston was his buddy. And I'm sitting here thinking like, Carl must be over the moon that his buddy's being honored by Charles Eston. You know what I'm saying? It's like to see it play out where you become the owner of the story. And when we do that is because they have to, we all think it's our own fault when stuff happens like that because we're only looking at it from our lens. When you force them to write their trauma story, they now have to look at the other characters. They now have to be like, what was my gunner doing? What was my gunner thinking? What was my driver doing? What was he thinking? Was it day? Was it night? That makes them realize usually it's not their fault and that like different things are happening. Because it's hard for you to go back to that place unless there's a reason for you to go back. And it's a peaceful reason. And writing that out is the peaceful reason. Be like, oh yeah, I want to get this right. Charles is going to play this guy. So I need to make sure I understand like his head place and his moment and all this. So it's again kind of flipping the script on it, remapping their brain, repurposing those memories as positives rather than negatives that keep them going.
Well, I'll tell you what, the reason I think that works specifically, and this is based on my limited experience because I'm not a mental health advocate. I'm not like I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychotherapist or anything. But like how you said it, when you first started telling your story about your gunner who passed away, right? Like it was very difficult to tell people. You would get very emotional about it because it was still fresh. But the more times you talked about it, the more times you told the story, the easier it became for you to tell people that story. Same thing for these guys who this may be their first time telling the story to somebody, and because it takes the power from that thing over you and it like rips it outside. It takes the Band-Aid off, pulls it out of you and puts it out there into the atmosphere. And then basically it's like it takes that pressure off your chest. Yeah. You know, and I think there's definitely a therapeutic effect from that, which I think is one of the reasons why what you're doing is obviously working because it's obviously helping a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, because you've had tons and tons of people come through your programs, and it seems to me that it's working. If people keep coming back, or they're referring people to other folks, like, hey, you should really try this out, or you should check this out, or give this a shot. Like, obviously that it must be doing something.
Well, I mean, we have multiple stories. There's probably 100 veterans, like no lie, 100 veterans that if we called them up and said, did it save your life? They'd say yes. Even in my office, you met Seth at the golf tournament. Yeah. He went to our we ran an art program at University of Southern California because we do it in universities around the country. And I had 6 people. I needed 7. And so I called Russell. He was actually at the tournament too. Yeah. This is in 2018. And I called Russell, who was already on. I didn't know him, but he was signed up for the program after I talked to him. I said, hey, is there anybody you could think of, one of your battle buddies, who you don't think would ever do art, but they'd come hang out with you for 2 weeks in LA to go to USC? He's like, I think I got a guy. And he texted me back saying, hey, my buddy Seth Cole's going to do it. Here's his number. And I called Seth and told him what the program was. He's like, cool, I'll come down. He came down, did 2 weeks of this art program, like he really went in hard on it too, which was awesome. Cause at first he was kind of like not feeling it. And then at the end of it, it was just a whole different person.
Yeah.
Later, he started really investing in our programs, just volunteering for me, helping me do some songwriting stuff, helped me coordinate some veterans because I needed help because, again, I wasn't getting paid at the time and we didn't have many people.
Yeah.
So he became like a really good asset. And I was like, man, you could be our veteran coordinator, especially if you moved to Nashville. And he finally told me the story behind USC. He said, you know, when Russell called me, I already planned the day I was killing myself. Like he has 6 kids too and a wife, and he just felt like his life is going nowhere. He's on like 30 pills a day and all that. He's like, I planned the day I was going to kill myself. It was actually during the USC time. But when he said, if I want to come out, I said, oh, I'll postpone that. He didn't tell Russ that, but he's like, oh, I got to spend 2 weeks with my best friend in Southern California to say goodbye. He's like, I'll do that, then go bite the bullet.
Wow.
He tells this story openly now. And so he went through our program and absolutely changed and saved his life. And now he never thought art would work. He was one of the biggest, like,
that turned everything around for him.
Changed his life. And
he just, what did he ever say why? Like he decided after going through the program that it changed his mind?
Because what it made him reflect, and he's one where you come back up, you should have him on the podcast, because he also it was a friendly fire, like RPG or round that hit his head, and he had a piece of brain on the ground. So he has a traumatic brain injury, and this is a horrible situation. But what we're doing is remapping and repurposing their memories. And so I think just through that whole process of finding art and an actual purpose and meaning, and then having him reach out to other vendors to help them, I think that's what really sold him on it. But I mean, we've had so many veterans that Eva was a veteran who went through a program who 2 months after she went through a program, she wrote to me saying, hey, this program wasn't life-changing, it was life-saving, because the day you called me, I was writing my suicide letter. Like, I still have that written out. And I was
Jeez.
like, this is...
What branch was she in?
Army. And
okay.
that was like 2 years later. Or now that's 8 years later, and she's still successful and doing her thing. And I'm like, it is crazy what it really can do for them when they don't feel like they have a voice or a purpose. Like hers specifically was about her mom, who kind of, after 20 years in the Army, her mom, when she started, she said her mom had like 20 photos of her on the wall. She had like a shrine for her almost, like on the wall, because she was so proud she joined the Army. She said after 20 years and like 2 or 3 deployments, there was one photo on the wall, and it was her boot camp picture. And she kind of had a falling out and disconnect, and her mom didn't like her anymore pretty much. And so we wrote a song called Picture in the Frame, where it was like, it's I'll never be the same as that picture in the frame, but I could still be me and a better person. So she wrote pretty much a letter to her mom about all of this, and that's what made her, she just needed that okay to talk about it. And then once we released it and put it out there, she felt like she told her whole story. And so many moments like that. There was another one where we saved a guy's life in Clinton, Iowa, when just randomly did a pop-up songwriting experience where he brought his wife on. And 2 weeks later, he showed up at a different festival we were at and was like, hey, I just want you to know, I only bought a ticket to that last festival because I was going to show my wife one more good time before I killed myself. And he's like, I saw a literal sign as CreatiVets, and you helped me share my story with her. So like, this is really happening for veterans, and it's crazy to think that just a simple songwriting session could do that. But you gotta realize we have these things that we don't think could translate to anybody, and we're holding it inside. And we write this song that we send to everyone, and all of a sudden everyone understands us, for even if it's for a split second.
I think it's pretty astounding that well, like I said, when we first started talking today, I'd never heard of any VSO or nonprofit in the veteran space that does this type of thing. So this is very unique.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of anybody doing anything even remotely similar to this. But there's obviously a lot of facets that make this so effective. Number one, you're building a big community of people that are interested in the arts. You know, you're getting people to do something that's outside their comfort zone, you know, and oftentimes they feel disconnected, and it kind of gets them reconnected with, you know, not only people in the community, but gets reconnected with a part of themselves they might not otherwise get reconnected with because they don't know how to do it. Maybe they just need a little guidance, like a little rudder steering, right? And then it's also providing people an opportunity to put their experiences out. Because a lot of times people go through something traumatic and they don't ever tell anyone about it. And they keep it inside, and that's the stuff that eats away at you. It's like drinking acid. You know, it starts disintegrating inside of you.
And you think you're protecting yourself and them by not telling them, because we go to war because we don't want people to see the evil that happens. And when we come home, we're not going to be like, by the way, here's what I saw, because we feel like it's due to disservice to what we just did by protecting them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we need to get it out, and we need to have a route to do that. And music and art is the one way. I explain it like this. The Marine Corps stripped away all my vulnerability, which is perfect for war.
Yeah.
Because when my buddy died, I just hopped back in the truck the next day and went to work like nothing happened.
Yeah.
The issue is they didn't give me my vulnerability back when I left. They didn't say like, oh, it's okay to feel emotion and be okay and be open to stuff now. Art and music does that. And it empowers you to tell the stories you want to tell. That's another thing. We don't want to sit across from a shrink and have them tell us about our feelings and us tell them about something that doesn't go anywhere. We want to be able to tell the stories when we want to tell them, how we want to tell them. And art and music does that. If tomorrow something happens to someone in my family, I can now turn to my guitar and process it in the proper ways, knowing that if I write a song or do an art piece, it could affect someone in a positive way down the future.
Yeah.
So I have a positive moment, and that's why I'm building that 24-hour art and music center I told you about.
Which, yeah, by the way, before we forget, because you only have a little bit of time left before you get to go, what are you building right now? You've got a church you just got, right?
Yeah, and that story's insane. We didn't have the money for this place either, but since I moved to Charlotte Park in Nashville area in 2018, and I drove by this old church that's been abandoned since 17.
Okay.
19,000 square foot, 2.5 acres right on the interstate. And from that first day, I was like, I'm going to have that. That's going to be my 24-hour art and music center.
You knew 6 years, well, six,
it was,
7, 8, 9.
Yeah, it's my form of optimism. Even if I don't know it, I know it. I'm like, that's going to be mine one day.
Yeah.
And in the very first board meeting ever I had, I told the board, I was like, it would be cool if there was a place that we can have one day that's 24 hours. Because when a veteran suffers from PTSD at 2 a.m., there's only places to be destructive. It's either go for a drive, drink, be angry, yell at someone, hit someone, do harm to yourself, because there's no alternative. In every demographic, doesn't matter what, if you're a veteran, if you're a part of a different community,
Yeah.
there's not a place to go that's creative, or a place that it's like hospital or bar. Like those are the only two places you can go. And even sometimes you get turned down from the hospital. You have to go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
So the idea was that I can go at 2 a.m. and beat the hell out of some clay, or write a song, or do some woodworking, or do something, go to a podcast studio that's in there, or go to a writer's room and write anytime I needed to just de-stress. And so in 2018, when I saw that building, I was like, I cannot afford that. We were a $300,000 nonprofit, and this is like probably a $5 million property I was looking at. I was like, that's going to be mine one day. And I just kept driving by it every single day, twice a day, going back and forth.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, we started renting space because I got a really crazy deal from a veteran we served down on 12th Avenue in Nashville. And throughout the whole process, though, I was like, I want that church. So I would email the council member and be like, hey, what's up with this church? What's up with this church? Finally, I got on the phone with him, and he told me about this church. He's like, hey, these guys own it. They're going to develop it. They want to put a hotel here, but the city probably won't let them do it because of the ingress, egress, where it's at, location base. I was like, well, if it's ever for sale, just let me know. Knowing I don't have the money for it, I just kept saying, let me know.
They're trying to put a hotel there?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah, they're building all everywhere. They just thought about money. They didn't care. They're money.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, we have our end of year board meeting a year and a half ago. We raised $2 million for the year, best year ever. Before that, it was like 1.3. Before that, it was like 800,000. Like, we legitimately have been growing pretty rapidly, building the team, right? But we also serve way more veterans each year.
Yeah.
And we're coming off that, and I'm like, okay, Nashville's growing too fast. We need to own a place, and I want a 24-hour art center anyway, so we could help veterans all the time. And there's this church I really love. I told them in the board meeting, I said, there's this church I've been wanting, I've been researching, I've been looking at, but I don't know if it'll be for sale, and we probably can't afford it. But I want the board to know I'm going to start looking for a place for us to live, not rent. And they said, go. And so that Tuesday, that was a Saturday board meeting. Tuesday, there was a for sale sign on the church. And I called the guy instantly, said, tell me everything.
So you said Saturday?
Saturday was my board meeting where I told the board about it.
Okay.
And saying,
by Tuesday, there was a for sale sign
Tuesday
on
for
there.
sale sign. I called the guy, and he said, hey, actually, it's already been under contract because it was on those websites for like a week. He's like, I just had an extra sign. I threw it down just in case. He said, there is an issue, though. Developers can't redevelop it. It's zoned for housing, and they're trying to redevelop it so they can make money off it. And I don't think it's going to happen. So I love what you're trying to do. So I'll hold everyone else at bay. If it comes back on the market, I'll call you first. And I'm just sitting there like, this is crazy. But he told me it's listed at $4 million. And I was like, we can't afford that.
$4 million?
$4 million
for that church.
Yeah. And I was like, there's no way we can afford this.
Dang.
But it is 19,000 square feet and 2.5 acres, primo Legitimately, you see it from the interstate. It's 10 minutes from downtown Nashville. You can't even get a tall and skinny sometimes. A new one for $3 million. Or $4 million. It's crazy around here now. And so I'm like, if this comes in my court, ball comes in my court anyways, I can't afford it. I don't know what I'm doing. But I still kept following that, like, I'm supposed to be here thing.
Yeah.
Friday rolls around. Guy calls me, says, hey, ball's in your court. He's like, it's open. I was like, oh my gosh.
I don't know how we're going to pay
now
for
I
this.
have to actually do this. I have to try for it. So I said, screw it. I need to see inside of it because I haven't seen inside of it. It's been abandoned since 2017. It could be a crap hole. And so I say, okay, let's meet tomorrow if you can. And he's like, cool, I can't do mornings. Let's meet at 4 p.m. This is important to the story too because at 1:45 p.m. I get to Vince Gill and Amy Grant's house. This is part of my life now. I didn't know anybody in Nashville.
Vince Gill and Amy Grant.
I'm going to their house to get my chiropractor treatment on. Rusty Cross, who you met, who I raved about, is Vince Gill and Amy Grant's chiropractor. And they're kind enough to let me go to their house to get adjusted, which happens to be like 11 minutes from the church.
Okay.
So I walk into their house, get ready to see Rusty, and I get a text from the guy saying, actually, can you meet me in like 10 to 15 minutes? And I said, oh, okay. So I turn to leave Vince's house. I grab the door handle and it jams a little bit. And Vince comes around the corner. He's like, no, you gotta really push down. I gotta get the fixed. And he said, did you get adjusted? I was like, no, there's this church I'm looking at. And he's like, oh, I know the church you're talking about. My daughter lives over in that area. And by the time I get the door open and that conversation happens, Amy comes around the corner and she's like, Richard, what are you doing? I tell her the same story. But I said, Amy, I can't even put this under contract unless I know I could raise a minimum of $2.5 million. I'm willing to try to figure out how to get the rest of it. If I can get to $2.5 million, I want to try to get this church. And she said, well, there's a reason you showed up today. She's like, you should put the church under contract. We'll help you get the money. And I was like,
we'll help you get the money.
I was like, okay.
Bro, what?
And so I go back, tour the church. It's in shambles, but its structure is perfect. Like the structure is perfect. So just some came pulled out the copper wire out and all the other stuff from everything.
Oh,
so
really?
There's still a lot of renovation. It's been sitting there since 2017. No HVAC, no electricity, no plumbing, no nothing.
Yeah.
But still beautiful. And I was like, I could do everything I want here. I could have the ceramic studio. I could have the wood shop. I could have the writer's rooms. I could have the podcast studio. I could have rental space. I was like, if I have rental space, all the rental money we can make can actually pay for all the overhead. So we wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And just the investment in the property. I was like, this could actually help us so much that donors wouldn't have to really worry about admin pricing because what we can make off this property and still serve veterans would help. And so, but for 2 months, I wish it was as easy as her saying, we're going to help you. How they helped was they put like 8 people in their living room and let me tell my story. A lot of the story I'm telling you today, like my whole keynote from like childhood to being blown up to starting CreatiVets with the co-founder and then to the building that I now want to turn into this 24-hour art and music center. Yeah. Before this moment, CreatiVets has never received more than $150,000 at once, and that's even new to us. So for me to try to raise $2.5 million in 2 months is unheard of. And so they let me speak at their house, and phenomenal people gave me.
Who are these people?
They're just a bunch of random people. I'll probably not say their names. But
okay,
I mean,
yeah, that's
it was
fine.
Their friends, close family, or close friends who they know had money or a pool or niche, or like could connect me to people.
Yeah.
And I told them my story, and I raised like $250,000, but it still didn't put us over the threshold, right? I was like, I'm still not sacrificing CreatiVets over a building. Because if I just took out a loan, we wouldn't be able to afford it. We don't have enough revenue coming in for me to pour into that. Yeah. And I would be sacrificing programs for veterans, which I didn't want to do. That was like the caveat. I was like, I can't sacrifice programs of veterans over a building. Yeah. And so 2 months came and gone, and I couldn't get it. So I said, I'll have to take this off. But I told Amy, I was like, I'm still going to try. I'm still going to figure out a way to get this church until it's gone. And so a few months went by. It's January of last year when my realtor called me, and she said, hey, they just called me. They said they're going to tear down the church. They're just going to put as many houses as they can up. It's not going to be a lot, but still. They will give you another shot, though. You're the only one that could rezone it. No other developer can. And so I said, okay, how about this? Let's ask them for $3.3 million for the whole property. It was at 4. And I still couldn't afford 3.3, but I said 3.3, and I could still hit the 2.5 million threshold maybe. And I was like, let's try it again. And they gave me 3 more months to try to find the money. So we're at a day prior to 3 months. And it's actually at our golf tournament last year. Our golf tournament last year fell on the day before I was supposed to sign, or say yes or no to this property. Yeah. So I'm at the golf tournament. The realtor shows up and she's like, hey, I know I was only at 500,000 raised at the time. So 2 million short of my goal.
God, it's so much money, dude.
So much money, especially for what I've built. Like it took me 10 years to cultivate even the first, like where we're at now.
Yeah.
And to expect that all just to be plopped in my lap in one go. So I spent 8 months trying to raise this money. Couldn't raise it. I'm at 500,000. And she's like, hey, because I never had to sacrifice money either. Both times, first time I put $25,000 down to hold it. When I said I couldn't raise the money, I got the 25,000 back. So I just put an escrow. On this next one for 3 months, I put $50,000 down. If I would have said, I don't want this building anymore, I would have got the 50,000 back. So she comes up and she says, hey, in this there's a clause that if you extend 30 more days, they get to keep your 50K, but you get 30 more days to raise money. Isn't that great? I was like, no.
They're going to keep my money.
Because then that's the first time that's like 40 veterans coming to Nashville telling their story, life changing. But throughout this whole 8-month process, I'm serious. God showed up so many times for the connect. Oh yeah, when I spoke at Amy's house, here's the craziest thing. After I gave that little hour-long talk, Amy looks at me. She said, hey, by the way, I didn't tell you this, but a week before you showed up to my house to tell me about the church, I was in the parking lot of that church and I prayed out loud over it. I don't know what's coming here, but I want to be a part of it. And then a week later, I showed up like, there's this church over here. That's why they were so upfront about helping me, because they saw it the same way. So all this stuff is leading. I was like, you know what? I spent 8 months trying to raise this money. I'm either doing this because it's going to be mine one day, or I'm holding it so it doesn't get destroyed, another church doesn't get destroyed, and I'm holding it for someone else. And I guess that's worth the sacrifice. So I guess I'm just gonna pretty much throw this 50K away, I guess. But I signed the paper to extend 30 more days, and I was like, this is gonna be bad. I'll probably reflect on this in 10 years and be like, dumb.
Oh my gosh, that was probably so gut wrenching.
Oh, it was like just the amount of processing I had to do, because I extremely care about where the money goes. I was just like, so I signed it over. And a week later, I'm sitting across from Gary Sinise, and we talked for an hour with his vice president of programs and his CEO. And we're talking. Previous to that, he toured the church. Like a month prior to that, he toured the church. Just looked at it and was talking about my waiting list and what's happening with veterans, what we're trying to do. And we talked for like an hour. Then he sent his CEO and chief development officer or whoever it was away. And me and him just had a really honest conversation about his son, Mac, who passed away of a rare cancer, and the love Mac had for other veterans and just Gary Sneed's foundation and all the stuff they did. And he's like, you know what? I want to name the auditorium in that building after him. I'm going to give you $1 million to name the auditorium after Mac Sinise. And I'm just sitting here like,
Gary told you to your face he's going to give you $1 million if you name the auditorium.
The auditorium after him. He was like, "This is your $1 million to name the Max Sinise auditorium." And I was just like crying, because I was like, "You don't understand. Luke's legacy is what built CreatiVets." And I was like, "I'm going to carry Mac's legacy now." And he gave me that. He has his own nonprofit, and he's not given, but Max Sinise's legacy is now going to live through CreatiVets, through this building.
Are you going to name any rooms after Luke too?
I'm going to do something big for Luke. I just don't know what it is yet, because I'm as we build it out, because we're still so far away from the rest of the money that we need for we bought the building, which is crazy. But once we had that $1 million and I had the other 500,000, I said, I don't need 2.5 million. I have 1.5 and Gary behind me, like in Mac's legacy behind me. But a week later, I met with these two donors separately. One of them, he'd only give me 10, not only because it's a lot of money. He's giving me 10,000 a year for maybe 5 years. So I knew him. The other one, he saw me speak somewhere a long time ago, never given CreatiVets any money. They toured the church like probably in October, like 6 months prior. And I've been trying to get them to get a donation just for the church, not knowing how much it would be. I didn't know how much they were worth, what they had or whatever. And we sat down and we talked, and they said, and this is a week after after Gary gave me the $1 million.
Yeah.
And they said, we're going to give you $1 million each. I was able to get
each.
I raised
each as in who?
Like each of those two donors gave $1 million. So
each of them. So you ended with 3.5.
$3 million. After I signed it over, I had three $1 million donations within like 2 weeks of me signing it over, thinking it was going. That's where I'm saying there's so many things that happen. And we had not received. Again, we've never received more than 150,000 ever, and we only received that a few times.
That's some like.
And that's what I'm saying. Like these things they happen. And it's when I need them the most and when I totally give it up to God and just say, I feel like you put me on this path for a reason, and I'm not going to doubt you, and I'm going to sign this sheet.
That is the most insane thing ever. Never received one donation that was over 150K, and then to get 3 back-to-back that were $1 million apiece. That is the craziest thing ever, bro. And now you've got it.
And now we own it. And we still have a lot of work to do. I still need to raise at least $3 million to get us in the door.
Yeah.
And then to outfit it later, $6 million probably for the full 24-hour art center.
But you own it now.
But we own this. We own the church that I set out in 2018
everything.
to be like, I want that for a 24-hour art and music center. Now it gets to save other veterans' lives throughout the process.
How much time do you need, or how much time do you have to raise the money you need to get everything done to
like
it?
Tomorrow.
Like
no,
tomorrow.
Legitimately the first, I have this issue. I just go build things and then get the money later, where every other nonprofit gets the money to build the thing.
Yeah.
And it always works out. And that's kind of what this building was. So this next phase, we could be moved in there by November. If we start building in May, which I may just be like, we're going to start building out and I'm going to raise the money. So we're starting our capital campaign to try to raise another, it's like $2.5-ish million.
Okay.
And that'll get us in the door in the building where we're operating on like 2 of the floors, mainly just our offices and a few program rooms.
Yeah.
Because people are just going to see what we're building and just pour into it.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of people. And I mean, Steve Mariucci, the coach, old football coach who's still on NFL Network, he's given to one of the rooms to name like Steve Mariucci Family Foundation Room. We've had Gary Sinise give, Amy and Vince give, and even the late Brad from Brad Arnold from Three Doors Down before he passed away gave. So we're gonna put his name on one of the pews
really
in there, and it was crazy because they all like, yeah, we love what you're doing. Here's some money for the support, and so I'll probably see a lot more people from the industry give and honor, because I mean this is the first of its kind in the country. There's nothing like this in the country
like this anywhere,
where veterans could just go be creative. They get in a fight with their spouse or they're drinking, they're emotional. It's like I can go to the CreatiVets Art Center 24 hours a day and just express myself without anybody else being around.
Yeah.
And just
so right now,
space.
How much do you need to raise left right now?
So at least $2.5 million gets us to get to the where we're actually operating there, where we have electrical, plumbing, and stuff. We have offices in there.
Okay.
And then we're projecting it's going to be another $6 million, but we have so much. Like Lowe's is coming in with a ton of in-kind donations. So even though on paper it looks like we need $8.5 million, my guess is probably $5 million, and then a bunch of in-kind donations.
Yeah.
So, but the big thing I'm pushing now is the individual monthly donor. If I would have, and this is the crazy thing, I just figured this out, which is stupid for me, but anybody else who has a nonprofit, you should start going this route. Every time, I would always go for those big donors. Never successful until this church project.
Yeah.
But you'll spend your whole career trying to find this $1 million donor. But if you spent 10 years and I was like, hey, Kagan, can you just do $10 a month for CreatiVets? If I spent 10 years doing that, all of a sudden I had 10,000 people give me $10 a month. I'm not good at math. That's a lot of money a month.
That's a lot of cash, man.
That's a lot of money a month. And I've been doing it backwards because I found out about another organization that has like 40,000 monthly donors. And I'm like, dude, even at $10, is that 400,000 a month? I was like, oh my gosh. So this whole thing now is like, no, can you just give $10, $20, $25, $100 a month to CreatiVets?
Yeah.
So that we can sustain, so that once 1,000 people come on board, oh my gosh, now it's a whole wing of this building we could do. Oh, now another 1,000 came on board. That's the whole operating thing. Now another 1,000 come on board. So now when I get the opportunity to speak on these platforms and others, I'm just going to be like, if you can afford $10 a month, please just sign up. Like, because on our website, creativets.org, you can go to donation and it's monthly, or just single. But I'm
you said creativets.org?
Yep. And if you spell out creative, and then just add TS at the end of it.
Okay.
There's another person had a website called CreatiVets with 2 V's in it. Like they spell out creative and they spell out vets. And they had a donate button on there. And they didn't operate it. I'm pretty sure they were funneling our donations for a really long time.
So CreatiVets.
Yep.
Yes.
.org. Yep.
Yeah,
one V
.org.
in that if
One
you ever
V.
get confused.
Yeah.
And if you Google search it, we're the first ones that pop up. You'll see. You could tell it's us.
Okay.
But yeah, I felt so crappy for a long time. I've been on Kelly Clarkson twice. I was a CNN hero. I was on stage with Lainey Wilson at the CMAs. I get a lot of actual press, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
But then we don't get a ton of donations. And when I search CreatiVets with the double V, like how it sounds when you say it as 2 words, I found this website that had a donation button on it, but they didn't have a 990. They didn't have anything. They weren't operating. I'm like, You know how many people probably donated to this and not
Yeah.
to us, thinking it was us? And it even said like something with creative arts and veterans. But
It was probably somebody that was just trying to funnel money.
that's what I'm thinking.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that nasty stuff out there, unfortunately. Well, so I'm looking forward to getting this out there to just post this stuff because I'd like. I mean, obviously, if I can help, because I think this is a really awesome endeavor, and it's going to be, like you said, it's the first of its kind in the entire nation. That's going to bring so many people. It's gonna be an avenue that so many people can take that they might otherwise not be able to.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, there's nothing 24 hours. Like if they need something right now and they need to like, you know, they're having like a nervous breakdown or something. They're like, I just need to go beat some clay or play some music somewhere, but I don't have anything at the house because I don't have the money to buy a guitar or something like that. This is going to be really cool, man. I'm really excited for you. I'm glad you were able to get the building, especially just like I said. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. It almost feels like God doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself, kind of thing. There's a lot of that going on with this for sure, and like all the connections that you've made that have led to other connections that have led to you being able to help more people is pretty astounding, actually, considering like how difficult it is to grow a nonprofit in general. Like, and the fact that you've gotten this far with it is freaking cool.
Especially with no backing. Like, most of these nonprofits that are really successful, I hear the backstory, and it's either they come from, they already had a lot of money. They were CEO of this huge organization. They put their first $1 million in it or whatever. Or they had this one big opportunity. Now they started off with a few million. Yeah. I'm like, I wonder how many that are even in this $2 to $5 million to $5 to $10 million range started legitimately from scratch, not knowing anything about it, and grow, because it is hard, man.
Yeah.
But again, it's not just me. It's like, I mean, it's obviously my passion and how I talk to people and how I get them involved with it.
Yeah.
But it's all these people just showing up constantly and helping me connect. Like, oh no, I heard about this. Go talk to that person. It's just in constant innovation. Like, we're building a prescription music platform so we could one day prescribe music to veterans at VA hospitals using the songs created by veterans. Like I told you about us saving that marriage by communication. Yeah. We're doing the same thing as like an app and a CRM system. So we're not done with the way that we innovate and tell these stories. And so I'm so pumped for what the future looks like, but it doesn't look good if there's no donors.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm glad that we were able to do this podcast, because I'm not great at, like, you know, calling attention to a lot of stuff, just like me out on the street, but like I can post stuff on social media and like try to bring attention to certain things. And I didn't even know you guys existed until Cliff told me about you. I had no idea you were even here. Yeah. You know, and that's the best way to get word out about it these days, is because people spend more time on their phones on social media than they do looking in the paper or looking in magazines, or, you know what I mean? And it definitely helps pass information, which is one of the things that, you know, I try to do with the stuff I've got, you know. So like,
no, you do a great job at it, man. Like I said,
I appreciate it.
Before Clifford connected me, I already followed you, and we had the Jackson Perkins who was starting to do kind of like active duty Marine Corps influence and stuff. Yeah. And he's like, oh, there's a few other guys kind of in this realm. And then and Clifford's like, oh, I know one of those guys. And he's like,
I know one of those guys.
And then he told me, I was like, dude, I follow him. So
that's so
it's just
funny.
such a cool moment, man.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing this too.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, it's just, like I said, it's a small world, and it's like like there's a lot of weird things that happen in my life too, where people get put into my life that I would have otherwise never had any. Like, if I hadn't gone to school with Cliff, I would never have met you or known you. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people that probably were in your life that led to like, this is like these small dots that get connected from other people, like your art teacher that told you to color the grass red instead of green. Yep. That one little small minute detail changed the whole course of the pathway you were on. You know what I mean? Like, and so there's just a lot of really good things that can come from this, you know. And personally, I'm really excited to see what you guys do with this, and I want to see it. I want to see it successful, because, like you said, there's nothing like this anywhere else in the nation, and I'm sure that thing, when it pops up and it's renovated and cleared out, I can like see it now, and it's going to bring a lot of people out to Nashville to come there specifically. A lot of vets.
Oh yeah, and hopefully it'll have other even organizations pop up stuff like this around the country, and hopefully it'll encourage VA and other people to be like, oh, what if we had like a small part of our VA hospital 24 hours and have creative arts? Yeah. So I'm hoping it's not just, it doesn't have to be creative. That's the big thing to the people out there. this could be any demographic, any hospital, anybody. I just want them to look at how they treat people differently. And I think it's a lot of this art music modalities that can be accessed anytime.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to definitely inspire a lot of people to try some different stuff, if nothing else. And then when they see this thing take off, they're going to be like, just inspired to help people. Maybe you'll get more people that want to come volunteer for you guys and come help out with what you've got going on.
I love that.
I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come talk with me. I appreciate you inviting me to come up to this golf tournament and meet all these unbelievably cool people that have incredible, unique stories. And, I'm glad I was able to finally meet you in person.
Same, man.
And sit down with you and hear your story out. So
until next time.
Yeah. Oh, we'll definitely be coming back. I promise you
100%.
that. So anyway, until next time, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you here soon. And I don't want to keep you from getting your son. So all right, we'll see you soon, man.
See ya.